And welcome to the City Planning Commission public meeting. Madam Secretary, the show is on.
Okay. Good morning. This is the City Planning Commission public meeting held at NYC City Planning Commission hearing room, Lower Concourse, 120 Broadway. Today is Wednesday, August 8, 2018. As a courtesy during the proceedings, we ask that you please turn off all cell phones and beepers. All speakers should fill out a speaker's card. In addition, we ask that those providing testimony please identify yourself, limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and speak clearly into the microphone. I will now call the roll. Chair Lago. Here. Vice Chairman Knuckles. Here. Commissioner Capelli. Present. Commissioner Cerullo. Here. Commissioner De La Use. Here. Commissioner Dweck. Here. Commissioner Edie. Here. Commissioner Efron. Here. Commissioner Knight. Here. Commissioner Levin. Here. Commissioner Marin. Here. Commissioner Ortiz. Here. A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, July 25th, 2018, and special meeting of Monday, August 6th, 2018.
On the minutes, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes approved.
Scheduling. On calendar numbers 1 through 12, we have resolutions for adoption. Scheduling Wednesday, August 22nd, 2018 for a public hearing to be held at NYC City Planning Commission hearing room to be, Lower Concourse, 120 Broadway.
On the resolution, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Resolutions are adopted.
The next part of the calendar is the report section on page 14. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 13 and 14. Calendar number 13, CD7, C170213, ZMK. Calendar number 14, N170214, ZRK. In the matter of applications for an amendment, for zoning map amendment and text amendment concerning 57 Caton Place rezoning. For favorable reports on calendar numbers 13 and 14, Chair Lago.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles? Yes. Commissioner Capelli? Yes. Commissioner Cerullo? Yes. Commissioner De La Use? Yes. Commissioner Dweck? Yes. Commissioner Edie? Yes. Commissioner Efron? Yes. Commissioner Knight? Yes. Commissioner Levin? Yes. Commissioner Marin? Yes. Commissioner Ortiz? Yes. Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 13 and 14. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 15 and 16. Calendar number 15, CD15, C180029, ZMK. Calendar number 16, N180030, ZRK. In the matter of applications for a zoning map and zoning text amendment concerning 1881-1883 McDonald Avenue rezoning. For favorable reports on calendar numbers 15 and 16, Chair Lago? Yes. Vice Chairman Knuckles? Yes. Commissioner Capelli? Yes. Commissioner Cerullo? Yes. Commissioner De La Use?
Yes, although I'd like to, I hope that the City Council consider switching the NIH option from option 2 to option 1. With that, I go yes.
Commissioner Dweck? Yes. Commissioner Edie? Yes. Commissioner Efron? Yes. Commissioner Knight? Yes. Commissioner Levin? Yes. Commissioner Marin? Yes. Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 15 and 16. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 17 and 18. Calendar number 17, CD1, N180226, ZAR. Calendar number 18, N180227, ZAK. I'm sorry, ZAR. I mean ZAK instead of ZAR. Thank you. In the matter of application for the grant of authorizations concerning Greenpoint Landing Parcel 5C for adoption on calendar number 17 and 18. Madam Chair?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles. That's me. Commissioner Capelli? Yes. Commissioner Cerullo? Yes. Commissioner De La Use? Yes. Commissioner Dweck? Yes. Commissioner Edie? Yes. Commissioner Efron? Yes. Commissioner Knight? Yes. Commissioner Levin? Yes. Commissioner Marin? Yes. Commissioner Ortiz? Yes. Calendar numbers 17 and 18 have been adopted. Borough of Queens, calendar number 19, CD5, C180138, ZMQ, in the matter of an application for a zoning map amendment concerning O'Neill's rezoning. For a favorable report on calendar number 19, Chair Lago? Yes. Vice Chairman Knuckles? Yes. Commissioner Capelli? Yes. Commissioner Cerullo? Yes. Commissioner De La Use? Yes. Commissioner Dweck? Yes. Commissioner Edie? Yes. Commissioner Efron? Yes. Commissioner Knight? Yes. Commissioner Levin? Yes. Commissioner Marin? Yes. Commissioner Ortiz? Yes. A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 19. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 20, CD1 N180330ZCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning Cedar Cliff Road and Hillsides Avenue for adoption on calendar number 20. Chair Lago?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles?
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli?
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo?
Yes.
Commissioner De La Use?
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck?
Yes.
Commissioner Edie?
Yes.
Commissioner Efron?
Yes.
Commissioner Knight?
Yes.
Commissioner Levin?
Yes.
Commissioner Marin?
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes.
Calendar number 20 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 21, CD3 N180318 RCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 151 McBain Avenue for adoption on calendar number 21. Chair Lago?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles?
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli?
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo?
Yes.
Commissioner De La Use?
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck?
Yes.
Commissioner Edie?
Yes.
Commissioner Efron?
Yes.
Commissioner Knight?
Yes.
Commissioner Levin?
Yes.
Commissioner Marin?
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes.
Calendar number 21 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 22, CD3 N180333 RCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning Detroit Edge Grove Avenues for adoption on calendar number 22. Chair Lago?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles?
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli?
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo?
Yes.
Commissioner De La Use?
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck?
Yes.
Commissioner Edie?
Yes.
Commissioner Efron?
Yes.
Commissioner Knight?
Yes.
Commissioner Levin?
Yes.
Commissioner Marin?
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes.
Calendar number 22 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 23, CD1 N180482ZAR, in the matter of an application for the grant of an authorization concerning Silver Lake Cemetery for adoption on calendar number 23. Chair Lago?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles?
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli?
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo?
Yes.
Commissioner De La Use?
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck?
Yes.
Commissioner Edie?
Yes.
Commissioner Efron?
Yes.
Commissioner Knight?
Yes.
Commissioner Levin?
Yes.
Commissioner Marin?
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes.
Calendar number 23 has been adopted. The next part of the calendar is the public hearing section on page 26. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 24 concerning Borum Hill Historic District Extension. This item has been laid over. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 25, CD2 N180188ZRK. A public hearing in the matter of an application for a zoning text amendment concerning 180 Myrtle Avenue.
Our first speaker in support is Rachel Scull.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Scull. I'm here from Greenberg Charig. We represent the applicant, Red Apple Real Estate. This is an application for a text amendment to Section 101-11 and Map 2 of Article 10, Chapter 1. These are the special downtown Brooklyn retail continuity requirements. These requirements currently limit use groups that can be located on a building's ground floor within 50 feet of the street line of a designated retail street. And this application would affect the south side of Myrtle Avenue between Fleet Place and Ashland Place, Block 2061, lots 1, 101, and 110, all owned and developed by Red Apple Real Estate, 3 buildings currently existing there. The amendment would lift the commercial use restriction within the first 50 feet of the street line of Myrtle to allow all uses permitted by underlying zoning, which would include community facility uses. These buildings have been completed from left to right since 2010, 2015, and 2016. And a lot of the commercial space on the ground floor has sat empty. The applicant has been approached by some community facility tenants to fill that space, and with your help and the approval of this text amendment, would look to do so in the future. And I attended the review session on Monday. I know there was a little bit of confusion about the low turnout at the Community Board 2 vote. That was actually an executive committee meeting, not a full board meeting.
Is that the end of the presentation? Yes. Great, thank you. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Delos.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me? Okay, great. I'm trying to recall years ago that I believe there was a desire to have a supermarket at one of these properties. Is that recollection correct?
There is a supermarket currently at 218 Myrtle.
Okay, so this would be in addition, whatever this would allow, a broader range of uses in addition to that supermarket use.
Right, they would be looking to fill the spaces that have remained vacant.
So what % of the buildings remain vacant at this point?
So right now, 218 Myrtle, there are two spaces. They're both filled. It's a supermarket and a CVS. About 50% of 180 Myrtle in the middle is vacant, and then all of the space in Fleet Place is vacant.
So approximate how many square foot is that?
There's about 34,000 square feet of ground floor retail total. Probably about 50% of that is vacant when you account for all three buildings together.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ortiz.
I have two questions. My first, could you speak to sort of the challenges of, the applicant has faced trying to fill these spaces and a little bit of the history on that?
Sure. So the applicant began marketing the spaces before the first building was even completed back in 2008. They've worked with brokers. They've worked on their own, as well as advertising at the location. They've been marketing the other two buildings since before they were completed as well, later in 2015 and 2016, and there just really hasn't been traction on this block. There's more attraction the closer that you get to Flatbush, but here they really haven't found the market for these spaces. But they have in the past year or so been approached by a few community facility tenants who would like to use the space, daycares, and not-for-profit medical facilities, and they think that they could at least begin to fill in this space if they can rent to more tenants.
Could you speak to how the applicant will address issues of, say, transparency? One of the reasons why we like retail on the ground floor is because you want activity. So, filling it with office space or community facility space sometimes undermines some of the goals of some of our planning objectives. But they can be addressed, so I'm curious how the applicant would like to address those.
So everything's already built and was built to meet the transparency requirements. Different tenants, of course, will require different fit out, but I don't think that there's any plan to get rid of the existing transparency, the existing windows on the ground floor as they are now. But I would have to speak with the applicant about how they are fitting out spaces for specific tenants. I don't have that information.
Mm-hmm. I would say like the devil's in the details a little bit there. We have some issues in some 161st Street comes to mind in the Bronx where we have, ground floor that was intended to be retail. It's nonprofit space now, and the blinds are down all the time, and there's a way to make it a little more welcoming and friendly. Through some of the design, and I would encourage the applicant to think through that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Gall.
Thank you.
There are no other speakers who have signed up to speak on this matter, but if there's anyone in the audience who would want to speak, please come forward now. The public hearing then is closed.
Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 26, CD5, C160331 PQK. A public hearing in the matter of an application for the acquisition of property concerning the Powell and Arnold and Marie Schwartz Early Learn Center.
Our first speaker in support will be Allison Grant, and also available for questioning is Stephen Lynn.
Good morning, Chair Lago and Commissioners. My name is Allison Grant. I'm the Chief of Staff for the ACS Division of Child and Family Wellbeing. It's nice to see you all again. I'm here today in favor, ACS is in favor of the continued use of this space at 452 Pennsylvania Avenue as a child care daycare center. As you know, this space was designed specifically for child care services. This program that currently operates at the center that's contracted with ACS to be Early Learn is the Police Action League, which is PAL, and the name of the center itself is Arnold and Marie Schwartz Early Learn Center. The center was contracted to provide services to families that earn up to 100% of the federal poverty level, and the children, their parents have a reason for care, meaning the parents are working, are in school or a training program, they might be homeless or looking up to work for up to 6 months. They're currently serving approximately 83% of the contracted capacity, which is 103 preschoolers. Those are children from ages 3 to 5. The DOHMH permit for the space is 114, but because the Head Start funding at the center requires greater space than the City Health Code, there's less children there. It's contracted for 103 instead of 114. I can answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Yes, Commissioner Efron.
I'm sure you've seen the borough president's report, which we just saw, and there was a concern about traffic and DOT and safety. Is there any way that ACS will be addressing that with the landlord, and anything you want to say about that?
Sure. I'm personally not aware of that issue. I appreciate you raising it, and I'll make sure to bring it back to the city leasing team within ACS administration, and I'm sure we can reach out and follow up on that. And I realize I didn't show you guys the PowerPoint. May I do that, Chair?
Afraid the time is up.
Okay, thank you.
But it will be part of the record.
Yes, I apologize.
If there's a pretty picture, you can put it up.
Oh, okay. That's the outside. This is the picture I like to show. It's the classroom. This is what it's all about, is the children and the fact that it's designed for them, and there's bright light in the space, et cetera.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll note that those are the only folks who are signed up to speak on this matter. But as usual, if there's anyone else who would want to be heard, now's the time. So this public hearing is closed.
Borough of Queens, calendar numbers 27, 28, and 29. Calendar number 27, CD2, C180265ZMQ. Calendar number 28, N180266ZRQ. Calendar number 29, N170267ZSQ. A public hearing in the matter of applications for a zoning map and zoning text amendments and for the grant of a special permit concerning 69-02 Queens Boulevard.
We will have a 10-minute presentation by the applicant team, which is comprised of Ross Moskowitz, John Ignatios Beam, John Lee, and available for questions are Zach Cadden and Robert Marino.
Good morning, Chairperson, Lago, Commissioners. First of all, first time in the new facility. Well-deserved, well-earned. I hope you all have much success and good paths here. My name is Ross Moskowitz, and I'm counsel to the applicant for the referenced items. I'm joined, as Chairperson said, by my colleague John Bean, as well as John Lee from Breaking Ground, who is our affordable housing partner for the project. As Chairperson Lago has stated, other members of the project team are in attendance and available to answer any questions the Commission may have. And our team is pleased to have this opportunity to present what it believes is a transformative project that will provide much needed affordable and market housing and public open space for this area of Woodside. Just wanted a couple notes based on the review session on Monday. And I apologize, we seem to have a technical difficulty. We're trying to get the PowerPoint up, and as soon as it's up, hopefully it will be up in a second. As briefly discussed at the review session on Monday, Lot 8 is now being excluded from the project. Lot 8 has no discernible impact on the project. Lot area is reduced by approximately 228 square feet. And the floor area by a little less than 1,800 square feet. Number of dwelling units without Lot 8 will remain the same. Of course, updates to the drawings and the environmental analysis will be submitted post-hearing. Also, questions were asked about potential school at the facility. Community and the borough president have also asked about that. And the applicant is considering opportunities to put a school at the facility. And of course, we will look at the feasibility and design options and come back to the commission if that is something that is doable within the time frame. As noted, this is an application by Madison Realty Capital for the following land use actions to facilitate construction of 2 mixed residential and commercial buildings, a total of 561 dwelling units, of which 30%, or 169, would be affordable, pursuant to option 2 of the mandatory housing program, which is 30% of units with the 80% AMI. Again, comment at the review session was to look at deeper affordability, and of course the applicant will look to do that as well. Yes.
Mr. Moskowitz, if I could just interrupt you, we're not aware that there is a PowerPoint. Has the team submitted one?
Yes, we have, and okay, sure. Is it going to be on now?
It should be on.
So this new facility is wonderful. Did I mention that?
It should say we are experiencing technical difficulties. There we go. It should be coming up in a second. Thank you. Okay.
While we're loading, let me just mention again, just for the record, the 3 actions that we're seeking. First is a zoning map amendment to rezone the southern portion of the property from an M1 to an R7XC23 zoning district. Second action is a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish a MIH designated area in Woodside. And the third is the special permit pursuant to Section 7743 to modify certain height and setback requirements within a large scale. So let me get back to the. Okay, so there you have sort of a nice presentation. Queens Boulevard to the north, 69th Street to the left there, 47th to the sort of foreground, and 70th Street to the west there. Again, 561 apartments, 169 affordable housing, and 242 accessory parking. As you can see, it's an irregularly shaped lot, about 1.65 acre, and the project area includes a mix of residential, industrial, manufacturing, transportation uses. As you can see from the screen, the elevated tracks for the Long Island Railroad are located within the southwestern portion of the project area. The study area around the project site is characterized by a predominance of residential districts. In 2006, the city rezoned dozens of blocks along Queens Boulevard and north and south of the project area under what was known as the Maspeth Woodside rezoning. The northern portion of this project area rezoned from M1-1 to its current R7XC23, and the proposed rezoning is actually a logical extension of the 2006 rezoning to basically match up with the other portion. As the existing M1 does not allow residential uses as of right, obviously the proposed project would not be permitted. What we're proposing is a maximum residential floor area of 6.0 with the mandatory floor area of 6 under the MIH, maximum community facility of 5.0, and a maximum commercial of 2.0. We believe this is consistent with the existing R7XC23 district on the northern portion of the development site. Now, the project consists of 2 L-shaped towers. Let me go back to the other drawing. Situated at the northwest and southeast corners of the site, and as you can see, with a central landscaped open space for the use of residents. As importantly, in the foreground is a landscaped public walkway at the southwest corner of the site, which will be available to the general public and which will serve as a buffer from the Long Island Railroad embankment and tracks. The 2 buildings total contain approximately 430,000 square feet of floor area. The east building to the right is 205,000 square feet. The west building along Queens Boulevard is 225,000 square feet, and that's where the retail will be. The east building will have 271 units, or 82 affordable. The west building will have 290 units, or 87 affordable. The heights, which we'll talk about in a second, my colleague John Bean will discuss, is where we'll be seeking the waivers, both because of the limitation of 14 stories as well as the limitation of 140 feet in height. Ground floor commercial space will be along Queens Boulevard, and we hope will help activate the area around the development site and improve the pedestrian experience. Total of 242 accessory parking spaces which are all proposed, all of which will be located in the facility between the central open space. We believe that rezoning the area from the M1-1 to the R7XC23 is a logical extension of the 2006 rezoning, as we discussed. And we believe that many of the same characteristics as the areas that were part of the 2006 rezoning By the way, no affordable housing has been built under the 2006 rezoning. We should make that a point, and which we believe which obviously will help facilitate. We believe including proximity to identical zoning designations, proximity to a major wide thoroughfare and elevated railway, and above average access to public transportation. As such, the planning rationales for the proposed rezoning, again, are similar to 2006 and we believe are compelling. Furthermore, the Long Island Railroad separates the portion currently zoned as M1-1 on the rezoning area. So we believe resulting in a small discrete M1-1 portion amongst residential and commercial districts. We believe the R7X's designation is consistent with the nearby residential and commercial districts that's mapped along Queens Boulevard. And we believe the proposed C23 overlay is appropriate from a planning perspective as it's consistent with the C23 districts mapped along Queens Boulevard, which vary in depths across along the cross streets. The C23, as you know, allow for a variety of locally oriented commercial uses, creates flexibility in the program in the ground floor spaces, and the commercial uses can be changed according to the evolving needs of the residents of the area and local population. In sum, we believe the proposal is consistent in terms of use and bulk as modified by the requested special permit, and we would hope that this would help facilitate not only the affordable housing, but as well as the commercial. I'll now turn this over to my colleague John Bean, who will hone in on the justification for the special permit and the height and setback waiver request, and of course, will be available for continued conversations.
Thanks, Russ. John Ignatius Bean, also for the applicant. I'm just going to take a second and try to find a slide that will help me to illustrate the points about the requested waivers and the large scale. I think that'll work. So as you can see, it's quite an oddly shaped lot. Although it has significant lot area, over an acre and a half, it actually doesn't have a proportional amount of frontage. And so when you combine that with the mandatory street wall requirements of the R7X, you end up pulling the building to the corners. And when you do that, you make, it results in a design that requires more height. And the reason for that is that the apartments per floor doesn't really change if you make it fatter. It just makes the apartments more inefficient. It actually doesn't increase the dwelling units. So we would simply be lopping off dwelling units if we were to reduce the height. In working with city planning staff on this, on the large scale plan, we realized that given the lack of open spaces and parks in the area, it would be good to maximize the central open space. So in addition to the minimum yard requirements that we're meeting, we also have more open space than is required on this lot for this development. And we also have the central landscaped area. Now, talking about that central landscaped area, it's as you know, the LIRR bridge is for the tracks is to the southwest of the development site. We actually have to keep an additional 30 feet back from that. That's part of why we have the walkway, but it also reduces our lot area. So you have a lot of factors working together to make us have to squeeze this development into the corners of the site. We also think it makes sense from a planning perspective. I think the commission's recognized in the past that taller structures are...
Madam Secretary, since we lost about a minute on technical difficulties, if we could give Mr. Beam an additional minute. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make it quick. So my point was that taller structures are appropriate for wider streets and elevated railroad, and that's exactly what we have. We've pushed the greater bulk to the northwest of the site along Queens Boulevard and abutting the overhead bridge for the MTA. And so we're seeking 3 stories on that side, and on the southeast side, we're seeking no stories, but 11 feet approximately to allow for us to maximize that 6.0 and maximize the affordable dwelling units. We had other comments that we wanted to illustrate through our presentation, but I think maybe if there are further questions about the special permit and about the waivers for the height and setback, then maybe I can just answer those as asked. Great.
Questions from the Commission? Commissioner Deleuze.
You obviously were listening closely on Monday from the review session, so I appreciate that. And it would just be helpful to know a little bit more about what does it mean to be looking into the feasibility of the school? Is that a full school? Is that a potentially K-5 school? Is that pre-K seats? Just characterizing that would be helpful. And if I may, just get them all out.
Sure.
And then, how is it, why is it that you all landed on option 2 to begin with, given the AMI levels in the community? And I just want to confirm that you said that since the rezoning in 2006 with the voluntary inclusionary, that no one's actually taken advantage of that.
So let me take the last one first. That we believe that is correct, and we had confirmed with staff. We're 99.9% sure, so I think that's correct. In terms of the option 2, I'm going to take this in reverse. In terms of option 2, that in our analysis and working with our partner Breaking Ground, we felt that that was the most economically feasible and the one that we felt wouldn't be driven by the market. As I said in my opening remarks, however, we are open to considering some kind of deeper affordability, and since Monday we've been looking at that. In terms of your first question, that's probably the most complicated question, because as you know, it wasn't in our original plans. It's not before you, but we have been looking and speaking to a series of schools in the area, both charter and public schools, and we're trying to figure out how this would work from a design perspective. And candidly, since we're in the clock, we're also trying to figure out how to handle some of the environmental issues. So ideally, having done this a few times, we would have liked to have come to you with this fully fleshed out, but right now we can't. So I can tell you that we're in ongoing conversations with SEA and other similar type facilities, and certainly we are looking for a solution.
Yes, Commissioner Efron.
Thank you. When we had hearings for MIH, we knew that there were a lot of complicated sites left, and thank you for bringing us one where you've come up with some creative solutions to a whole bunch of conditions. Since this will be a first in many ways for this community of taller towers, and as you say, the first new ground-up construction in a while for affordable housing, will there be an ongoing role for the community in the ultimate design of this?
Well, ongoing roles is probably, the answer is yes, but I think if I could rephrase it, or maybe not answer it the same way that you've posted it, I think we've had an open dialogue with the community. Some of the things, for instance, on the public open space that the community was looking for in terms of eyes on the ground and making sure that there was really good security, cameras and the like, a lot of that comes out of conversations with the community. So I think it's an ongoing dialogue with the community. The applicant, and especially given the nature of the units that are going to be there, has to continue that dialogue, and so we would welcome that. I'm not giving you a direct answer because I think design, first of all, it's not what I do, so I would not want to speak for an architect, but I think the massing and the design of it is kind of where we're looking for, but with the school now as a potential component, I think there may be some changes. But the dialogue with the community, with the Borough President's Office, with the local council member has been ongoing and will continue.
Commissioner Delahoo's.
There was another piece in the community board's recommendation that I wanted to follow up on, and that quite honestly is concern that that your client has a history of one particular project that was mentioned where the project was purchased with a promise of 50% affordable, 50% market rate, and then the project was flipped. Can you speak to that concern to try to address that?
The only thing I could say to that is that I'm trying to be polite. I think those comments were not correct comments, but having said that, we're on the record, and we'll repeat it here, that the client our applicant will be closing on this regardless of where this goes, because there was sort of a comment made that they're not going to go forward with this project if there isn't a rezoning, which I think some people thought was a nice way of stopping the project, to be blunt. But we'll continue forward, and there'll be others who are speaking today in support of the project and the clients and Madison's background in developing affordable units.
The one thing that I will note is that were this to be approved, it would be MIH, so there would be no choice. It would be mandatory to provide it.
Correct. Right.
Other questions? Commissioner Levin.
Yes, I had two unrelated questions on Monday, and Mr. Bean got partway through answering one of them, or was rushed in answering them, and that has to do with the feasibility of complying with the 14-story, 140-foot height limit. I wonder if you could draw that out a little bit more and help us understand why that's a hard thing to do, or as the way I put it on Monday, what would this project look like if you got the rezoning but had to build to the height limits. And
Sure.
then my next question is about what happens to the existing businesses and facilities on 47th Avenue.
Sure. So on the first point, I guess what I was trying to illustrate is that given the yard requirements, the street wall requirements of the contextual district, it is possible to try to squeeze the 6 FAR into 14 stories, but you wouldn't actually have more dwelling units. You would have deeper units, you would have less efficient building, you would have less open space in the central area, but you wouldn't actually increase the number of market and affordable dwelling units in the building. From an architect, I'm speaking based on my conversations with our architects and who are well-established architects and been doing this a very long time. And even planning this project 3 years ago, they said there's no way we can do this if we can't get some relief on height because of the way this lot is shaped, the lack of frontage, the requirement to set back from the MTA. It's sort of a perfect storm of site conditions that result in needing more height to get to that 6.0.
So how many units, but you say that the 6.0 could be fit into 140, but it just doesn't make development sense.
Well, it doesn't, you lose dwelling units. So you would lose 68 units from the west building and you'd lose 18 units from the east building. Just literally lopping off the top is what would have to happen. You would put the floor area somewhere in that central part of the site. City planning was, staff was encouraged us to increase the open space and seek the large-scale special permit for this very purpose. So it was something, it was collaboration.
So there's no way to relocate if you were to take off the top floors, there's no way to relocate those units into new units.
That's correct.
You would just simply,
it would just reduce the size of the affordable housing
you would just get
exactly. Sorry, didn't mean to speak over you.
Fewer, bigger units.
Fewer, bigger, less efficient, not necessarily more bedrooms either because of multiple dwelling law requirements for depth of room.
Okay.
You'd have bowling alleys.
And more constrained. Well, with small kids, that might not be a bad idea.
I have two, I understand.
Hall hockey is
anything to keep them busy.
Yeah. And you would have more constrained open space.
Correct.
Okay.
And we thought open space was crucial to a project where people would want to actually live and enjoy themselves here.
Okay. Thank you for spelling that out.
Sure.
And then what about I had a question on Monday about the circumstances under which the Armenian Center and the tenants in the corner building on 47th Avenue will be relocated.
Right, so the Armenians, that's an owner, so they are getting the benefit of this sale. And I think they're looking throughout the city. I think it depends on the needs of the congregation. This is a huge infusion for their congregation, and I think they want to be wise about how they use it.
So your clients come to terms with them on buying them out?
Yes.
Okay.
We have, we're hard money, but we don't have a closing date, I think, until the end of the year.
Okay.
And on the other businesses, it's owned by a company named Atlas, and they've relocated locally. We're closing tomorrow on those two parcels. If I had the tax lot map that we put together for our presentation, I could show it to you, but I don't think we have it broken down by tax lot in this presentation. Yeah. So point being, the displacement is I think, acceptable under the circumstances.
Atlas is moving.
Thank you.
The 36th Street is where the Atlas, the florist, and the other user.
Okay.
Pictures are good.
Pictures are great. And there is one random house that's left on 36th next to, I guess it's not on your property, it's next to the building that's
right
currently
adjacent
under
to the market housing on the northeast corner. I think they're hanging out.
Did your client make an effort to acquire that house as well?
I would imagine they did because they're developers, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Ortiz.
I have a question about just the 80% AMI, and the selection of option 2. We were the community board indicated that the census tract, the median incomes here are $22,000. Although if you look at the neighborhood, median incomes are higher for the neighborhood. The census tract is a little different than the neighborhood as a whole. And I'm curious, at 80% AMI, is that basically market here? I mean, are your affordable units and your rents, your assumptions around rents of the affordable units more or less what your market units are going for? Because, you know, I'm sort of curious what the market is here and whether we're seeing a big discrepancy between those two, or are they around the same?
Well, I would say that our market research doesn't indicate that it's market, that it's actually below market. But hearing the feedback and looking a little deeper at the statistics, based on the conversation yesterday, we are hearing that we need to think about deeper affordability to be more inclusive in this neighborhood. But our analysis is that 80% AMI is still slightly below market in this area.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Deleuze.
This is more just a note to follow up to that. I mean, I would just highlight, right, that AMI has consistently, besides the Great Recession, has gone up year over year in New York City and went up almost $10,000 from last year to this year. So, I mean, I think your comment about trying to be more inclusive is important, especially given rising AMIs.
Thank you. Other questions?
Thank you. Now, those are the only folks who have signed up. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There is one other speaker. I'm sorry. If we could have Pasquale Filano.
And Chairperson, Mr. Lee seems to be delayed, not through technical difficulties, but through the MTA. So he will submit something in writing post-hearing. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Pasquale. I'm a porter at 10 Hudson Yards, and I've been a 32BJ member for 2 years. As you all may already know, 32BJ is the largest property service workers union in the country. Many of our members work in residential buildings like the proposed development at 6902 Queens Boulevard. We estimate that this project will create roughly 14 new building service jobs. We are pleased to let you know that the developer has made a commitment to good, family-sustaining jobs for Woodside families. Madison Realty has also worked to ensure good jobs and high standards for workers at other buildings in their portfolio, and is developing a strong partnership with 32BJ. 32BJ believes that developments that pay building service workers the industry prevailing wage and benefits allow workers to live and work in the city that they love while supporting their families. For these reasons, we urge the Planning Commission to support this project.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Filano? Thanks. Okay, at this point, we don't have any other speakers on this matter, but if anyone in the audience is interested in speaking, please come forward. Okay, the public hearing is closed.
Borough of the Bronx, calendar number 30, CD2, C160161PQX. A public hearing in the matter of an application for the acquisition of property concerning LSSNY Early Life Center 2.
We will welcome back Allison Grant, and available for questions is Michael Blanchard.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Allison Grant. I'm the Chief of Staff for the ACS Division of Child and Family Wellbeing. Thank you for having me again. I'm here as ACS is in favor of the continued use of this space as a daycare center. As you know, it was designed specifically for child care services, and I'm quickly going to go to the PowerPoint so I don't forget this time. So we have some pictures just to kind of show you the space. This is a couple of the classrooms. Obviously, large space that follows the city and federal regulations for child care use. The kitchen shows some of the facilities that are at the center. The play roof, as you can see, it's furnished to have soft rubber floor tiles and toys, and the fencing is there for safety, as required by the city health code. And those are the pictures. I'll stay on the classroom picture. Just some quick details. The center is contracted with Lutheran Social Services of New York to provide early learning services to families that are at 100% of the poverty level and have a reason for care. The center is permitted to serve 145 children, and it's budgeted to serve 137 due to Head Start regulations requiring more space for children. And I will take any questions you may have.
Commissioner Efron.
For coming back, this question will, or this comment will not surprise you, which is in the Bronx Borough President's report about this daycare center and perhaps the other one as well that we will be hearing from you about. There was a reference made to fire suppression systems, which I would interpret to include sprinklers. I noticed that this center does not have one, and there is an active kitchen, and I'm just wondering if there's any plan to include any sprinklers in this space.
There's not at this time. My understanding, but I will go back to facilities and inquire about future.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Chair Knuckles.
With regard to that, do you have an estimate as to what, in this particular location, a sprinkler system installation would cost?
I do not. I know that question was circulated and it was being researched, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Other questions? I would just add my voice to the seriousness with which the commission takes the issue of sprinklering and would ask for robust answers to the questions.
I appreciate that, Chair.
And if possible, sprinklering, which is the intended, which is the desired result.
Great. Thank you, Chair.
Other questions? Thank you. Again, these are the only speakers who have signed up on this item, and if anyone else is interested in speaking, now would be the time. So this public hearing is closed.
Borough of the Bronx, calendar number 31, CD9, C160160, PQX, a public hearing in the matter of an application for the acquisition of property concerning the Watson Avenue Early Childhood Center.
And once again, we welcome back Ms. Grant, and for questions, Mr. Blanchard.
Should I introduce myself for the record? Allison Grant. I'm the Chief of Staff for the ACS Division of Child and Family Wellbeing. And ACS is here in favor of the continued use of the space as a daycare center. As you know, it was designed specifically for child care services. I'll quickly go through the PowerPoint. Again, it's just some pictures to show you the site. This is the exterior. We're working to help with facades like this one, as we've discussed previously. This is a classroom. It's a corner where we have some computers for kids and for staff as well to use. And the playground on the roof, like the last facility we discussed, it's retrofitted to ensure safe spaces for children with foam rubber play tiles, as well as the fences as required by city health regulations. And those are our pictures. I like the playground here the best, so I'll stay on that. This program is contracted with Birch Family Services to provide care to families that earn up to 200% of the federal poverty level and have a reason for care. The center is contracted to serve 87 preschoolers, meaning ages 3 to 5, and it's currently at 75% enrollment, which is typical for this time of year. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions? I think you can assume that we have the same questions and concerns with respect to sprinklering as on the prior.
Understood. Thanks, Chair.
Other questions? Okay, those are the only speakers who have signed up. And as usual, if anyone else wants to be heard, now would be the time. The public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Borough of the Bronx, calendar number 32, CD10, C180346, PSX, a public hearing in the matter of an application for site selection of property concerning the Bartow Avenue Animal Shelter.
We are going to have a 10-minute team presentation by Alexandra Silver, Jeff Dupuy, Jose Adames, Jason Ortiz, and Virginia Lynn.
Hi, how are you? I'm Alexandra Silver from Animal Care Centers of NYC. I am the Community Advocacy and Outreach Manager, and I'm happy to be here to talk about the Bronx Animal Shelter, which all of us at ACC and I think in the animal welfare community are very, very excited about. I'm going to give a brief overview of who we are and what we do, and I'll let my team members here, other people, talk about the site selection in particular. Animal Care Centers of NYC, ACC, is a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit contracted by the City of New York to be the open admissions animal shelter for New York City. And what that means is we are under contract necessitated to take in every animal that comes through our doors. So it doesn't matter how old they are, it doesn't matter the behavior, it doesn't matter medical, it doesn't matter the species. So I have a couple of pictures here of dogs, cats, rabbits. These are actual animals from our shelter. Those are the species that we have available for adoption 7 days a week. However, we take in every kind of animal you can imagine in New York City. That amounts to more than 25,000 animals a year across the 5 boroughs. Our mission is to end animal homelessness in New York City. It's something we can only do with support of the community, and we reach out to the community as much as possible. However, we only have 3 care centers that are full service. Those are in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Staten Island, and what full service means is that they not only take animals in, but we also are open for adoptions. As I said, 7 days a week. We also conduct lost found tours, so people can come in if they lose their pet. They can look in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. Currently in the Bronx and Queens, we have what are called admission centers. Those are essentially storefronts where animals can be brought to us if someone finds a stray, or if there's someone who's having a challenge keeping their pet. We have counselors who can help them keep their cat or dog if it's the best situation for everybody. In the Bronx, we also have a pet food pantry, which has been really great in helping people keep their pets, but it's not a full service center. So we do have mobile adoption centers, which is the second picture. It's very small, but I don't know if you can see that in the middle. That's one of our mobile adoption centers that travels across the 5 boroughs, and every weekend we take animals to neighborhoods across the city and try to find them homes. And we also talk to people about volunteer opportunities, the resources we have. And it's been great, but again, it's not a full service brick and mortar, which we have in the other boroughs. And the last picture on the bottom is a truck from our animal rescue team, because we are also on call if any members of the public need to call about an injured animal or a stray dog. Our animal rescue specialists will respond, again, throughout the 5 boroughs. A lot of what we do is admissions and surrender prevention. It's not just enough to adopt animals out, but we want to help people keep their pets. And I notice I'm running a little slow in time, so I will skip through this, but surrender prevention is a big aspect of what we do. Community Pets Program, an extension of surrender prevention. This is a program that's specific to the Bronx, which we're really excited about. It's new in the past few years. And what it offers is, in addition to the food pantry I mentioned, free vaccine clinics for dogs and cats, free dog training, and recently we're also able to connect people with spay-neuter services. So that's been really great. And again, this right now is only in the Bronx, and it's mobile. We are also really working on increasing our outreach with schools and with youth groups. This is something I'm particularly excited about. We're organizing class field trips to ACC all the time, so we have schools coming in for tours, doing projects at the shelter. These are some pictures from, I think, all but one of the pictures are from Bronx groups that actually came in to visit us. We have some Girl Scouts. I think that's PX, I don't want to mess that up, at 10X11 on the bottom there. They came to our Manhattan Care Center. And currently, groups have to come to our Manhattan Care Center from the Bronx if they want to visit, which works out. We've had, this is a list of many of the schools that have come from the Bronx in the past couple of years. But a lot of times, schools that I think would come are unable to come because of the distance. And on that bottom left, that is our Bronx Admission Center. But the kids there, they made toys for our animals. They weren't able to see any, unfortunately, but they dropped them off at our admission center. And jobs, this shelter is going to bring a lot of job opportunities to the Bronx, which would be great. We are always hiring in all departments, from entry level to supervisory positions. This is just a few of the jobs that are available. And lastly, Boroughbreds. I just wanted to share these pictures. These, again, are animals, shelter animals, actually actual animals that we used in a photo shoot. We call our animals Boroughbreds because a lot of them are mutts. People might come in and say they want a Pomeranian, a German Shepherd, but we don't know for sure what they are, but we do know they're New Yorkers. And they're proud, just like we are. They're Boroughbreds. So I just wanted to share some of that with you. And when we start a reading program, which we're working on, I'm very excited about, a reading program for kids, we're calling it Books with Boroughbreds. So I will pass that on.
Hi, I'm Jeff Dupay. I'm a Deputy Commissioner in the Mayor's Community Affairs Unit. So just some background on the site. Mayor de Blasio pledged to bring full-service animal shelters to all 5 boroughs. The Bronx has been underserved and has never had a full-service animal care center. In the fiscal year 2017, so just talking about why, sort of background on this. The fiscal year 2017 community needs statement, Community Board 10 specifically listed a full-service animal care center as something that was needed. And a month and a half ago, 2 months ago now, City Council just passed a law well after we were into this project mandating full-service animal shelters in all 5 boroughs. Mayor signed that into law, and the good news is we are well on our way to delivering with that. And so this site was selected after an exhaustive multi-year search with upwards of 20 properties that we looked for, primarily city-owned land. So the proposed location is in red, as they always seem to be. Currently on the lot are 66 NYPD trailers. So the chair noted the other day that NYPD parking seems to be the only reason there's any city land anymore. So there you go. So just context, the zoning in the area, while adjacent to Co-op City, the zoning is similar to what is needed. It's not zoned as of right, as was mentioned the other day, but close enough that it qualified for a mayoral override for the zoning. So it's currently a vacant lot. So quickly through some of the siting criteria, we need it to be accessible by car and public transportation, convenient to Bronx residents, welcoming. So this is located basically in a shopping mall. So that adds to the visibility of it, which is a gigantic plus. We don't want these things buried in industrial zones. We were prioritizing it being on a city-owned site. The lot size was also key. Finding a city-owned lot this large pretty much doesn't exist anymore. And as I mentioned, the zoning is very similar to what is needed. So some requirements for parking. This allows for, it's a vacant lot, so we don't need to do demolition. There aren't hazardous materials on the site. It will have minimal impact to the surrounding uses because they're commercial and manufacturing right now. The design considerations, the drafts that we have so far, will minimize noise from animals, and it will be staffed 24 hours a day. So it's going to be a 2-story facility. Sorry if I'm rushing through this. 2-story facility, 68 parking spots, which is required by zoning. The lot size is 88,000 square feet and a 47,000 square foot facility with a full care animal care center, a veterinary medical clinic on the ground floor, and administrative offices on the 2nd floor, which is a big complaint that we hear, that we're spending money on rent downtown and that central staff aren't located at a shelter. So this will actually, check off 2 of those things, which we're very, very excited about. It'll allow for open air space for animals, supervised, of course, and housing approximately 140 cats, 70 dogs, 30 rabbits, and 20 other. So groundbreaking in 2022 and expected to move in 2024. So some benefits to the community, as mentioned a few times, it's going to bring over 100 jobs. I think the projection is 116 jobs. These are ranging from entry level to mid-level management. They're union jobs, which again, we're very, very excited about. And we're excited to work with the community to make sure that as many of these jobs as possible come from the surrounding areas. Alex mentioned some of these other programs in the interest of time. It'll be open 7 days a week with adjusted hours depending on the day of the week. Let me skip through this and show you some pictures quickly before I'm out of time. So this is just a rendering of what it could potentially look like right now. Instead of the trailers, we will have this open, welcoming space. Specifically designed to have different entrances so that customers requiring different services will be able to enter through different spaces. So one for adoption, one for admission, so people who need to relinquish animals, one for staff, and a separate entrance for the veterinary clinic. This is the, sorry, we'll go quickly through these. So potential adoption area, I guess we'll end with that.
I'll note for the commission before the questioning begins that we also have representatives from the city's Department of Health and Mental Hygiene and DCAS, if your questions go in that direction. Yes, Commissioner Capelli.
Did you say that you had examined 20 other sites?
I forget the exact number. DCAS.
Hello, my name is Jason Ortiz. I'm with DCAS Leasing.
Okay, I was curious in terms of those 20 other sites, what was the reason that, or is there a reason why this one was selected? And as a secondary question, were any of the other sites suitable for a youth center that has been proposed, as a possibility for this site as well?
So the total number of sites that we presented to DOH-MH for their consideration was 11. 7 of which were city-owned, 4 of which were privately owned. Those are the only sites in the Bronx that met some or all of their programmatic needs. In terms of why this site was selected, I think they talked a little bit about why it was advantageous, but why the other sites were not selected were 3 major issues. One was price for the privately owned sites, which range from $10 to $20 million to purchase. The second was location. So as they stated earlier, they did not want the shelter buried in an industrial site, right? And I think the third was the parking component, which was a major obstacle in finding a suitable site. To answer your second question, I don't know if any of the sites were appropriate for a youth center. That wasn't part of our initial discussion, but this is something that we can provide at a later date.
Can you take a look at that and let us know?
Can I follow up on that as well? Step in. And so there is, you recently heard an application on the Edenwald YMCA, which is 1.5 miles from this site. So we looked at sites across the Bronx. I think there's a discrepancy. He said 11 sites. I think that it was 11 city-owned sites and a number of private sites as well. And while it wasn't factored into the initial consideration, we have heard from the community over and over again that they're interested in a community center. So we're very interested in engaging with community members to figure out how we can deliver services that are needed there, in addition to what is being delivered 1.5 miles away, the brand new community center.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Could you just tell me, or tell us again, why could you not break ground until 2022?
Who is best to answer that? That's something that confuses me too, and I expected the folks on this commission would understand better, but Jose, maybe?
Hi, yes, hi, my name is Jose Adames. I'm an architect with the Department of Health. So the reason why we can't break down ground until 2022 is because after ULURP is completed, we have to go through the process of an RFP to hire an architect to design this facility. So the RFP itself takes a couple of months. After we have an architect on board, design will take approximately 18 to 24 months. Once design is completed, we go through the bidding process to acquire the contractor to build this. Bidding takes about 9 months. And then after bidding is when we can start construction.
As a somewhat removed administrator in city government, and I dealt with those processes, that just sounds like an extraordinary amount of time to design what is a relatively small project. I mean, we look at buildings that are exponentially larger than this that I'm sure don't take 18 to 24 months to design. And I just find it hard to believe that it would encompass an additional 4 years, assuming this went forward for you to launch this.
If I might note for members of the applicant team who might be unaware, Vice Chair Knuckles is also a former commissioner of what was then the Department of General Services, so speaks with some knowledge.
So the mayor shares this interest in moving it as quickly as possible. He has said to me repeatedly, make sure this goes through as quickly as possible. I think we're being conservative because we don't want to set an expectation that it will be delivered faster and then get hit with delay after delay after delay. So the 18 to 24 months, we are going to push to make sure that it's 18 months. We're already starting with the schematic because we worked backwards from the needs of the Bronx to make sure that we could actually fit the needs for an animal care center in the Bronx into this space. So we have a design right now. It will need, I mean, you guys know, right? When you hire a new designer, they start from scratch. So that's one of the things that we'll have to deal with. But we have a keen interest in making sure that this goes as quickly as possible, because the sooner we're able to move in, assuming that it goes forward, the sooner we can start offering service to residents of the Bronx.
I think you're being pessimistic, not conservative.
That's fair. And good news, frankly. I'd love for it to open sooner.
Commissioner Marin.
Good morning, everyone. Can you speak to the disconnect between the community board's recommendation that basically they're in support of this project, but not at the site, and then the borough president's report that talks about little, if any, outreach was apparently made to the city, to the host community? There seems to be a disconnect there. Right. Can you talk to that?
Sure. I mean, we've been engaging with advocates around this for years, not around this specific site, but around the needs for a full-service animal shelter in the Bronx. As we're going forward with this process, there were other considerations about sort of land use applications in the vicinity. So we didn't do as robust of an engagement as we could have. Hindsight is very clear on that. But I mean, having sat through 2 community board meetings and the borough president's hearing, what we've heard from the community over and over again is that they want something that hasn't been proposed, right? Nobody's talking about, let's build a community center on this site. There's no proposal for that currently. There is, however, a need and funding for a full-service animal shelter in the Bronx. There's a law now mandating it. So in hindsight, we could have started the community engagement process sooner. Frankly, I don't know that would have made the folks who are here to testify against it say, oh, actually, yeah, we do want this. I think it's a sort of false binary, right? Of we don't want this in the site. Instead, we want something that doesn't exist. Well, there are a lot of things that we'd like to be able to deliver to communities. And again, as part of this process, we're very interested in working with residents of Co-op City and other local residents to make sure that we are meeting the needs that they have.
And also, you speak to, when the question was asked regarding the number of sites that were identified and studied, aside from cost and private or public engagement with these sites, were any of these sites suitable in size to accommodate the center?
One was suitable in size. I forget which one, but it's in the same building as a correctional facility. And we thought that was a pretty immediate disqualifier. We want this to be a warm, inviting place, and to have it be housed in the same building and to sort of put a square peg in a round hole of this existing building. Full-service animal care centers are very specialized buildings. They require a lot of ventilation and sort of soundproofing thoughts about where we put walls for the flow of traffic so that sick animals aren't getting near well animals, adoptable animals. So those 2 factors, the fact that we'd be starting with an existing building and the fact that we'd be putting this warm, fuzzy place inside of the same building as a correctional facility, pretty quickly took it off. None of the other sites were large enough. Even this site, I mean, based on recommendations from shelter experts, they want us to have a 2-acre lot for this, a 2 to 4 acre lot, I think, which is massive and doesn't exist. So this is us doing our very best with this piece of land. The fact that it's open on a few sides is a tremendous benefit as well. Should be worth noting as well that most of the other sites that were looked at, you have already reviewed because we're now developing affordable housing on them. So most of those sites are gone anyway. So if this doesn't go through, we're back to square one with a lot fewer parcels.
And then lastly, on slide 14, I think it mentions, I'm going to say conveniently located. I'm not sure it said conveniently or centrally located.
Yeah, I mean, these were, I'm sorry.
So I guess the concern is, you know, we're having animals adopted and animals dropped off, and larger animals cannot travel on public transportation unless crated.
Right.
How do we get those animals in and out of the shelter for folks that want to drop off or adopt? I think that's a concern. I don't think that has an answer at this moment, but I mean, if you could try to answer that question, that would be great.
It does. I mean, these are the top considerations that we had. quite frankly, we couldn't check all of these boxes 100%. So we would love, of course, for this to be in the dead center of the Bronx, but the reality is that none of the care centers that we have right now are centrally located. One is in East New York, one is in East Harlem, and one is on the South Shore of Staten Island. None of them are convenient except to the people who live there, which means that people are adopting large animals and taking a car home. I think that's the reality of the services provided.
Thank you.
That is a valid concern. We have a lot of large dogs. We also have a lot of cats, though, and that's the biggest population, which, of course, people can put in a carrier. I know I've done that many times on the subway or the bus.
No, that's why I was specific in asking about large animals, because I realize the cats are not going to get but so big, and they do travel on the carrier. Small dogs travel on the carrier, but we do see the presence of larger dogs being dropped off and picked up.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Other questions? Okay, we will then turn to 5 speakers in opposition, followed by 5 speakers in support, and going back and forth. And to reiterate what the Secretary had said earlier, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Our first speaker in opposition is Anise Bailey.
I just want to say thank you.
Good morning. My name is Anise Bailey. I'm a Co-op City resident, and I am in opposition of the animal shelter to be built in a location on Bartow Avenue. Our community does need a youth center, and this is not a new request. It's a long-standing one. The addition of the animal shelter at this location would bring additional traffic to the already congested area due to the mall that we have. The bus routes that service the area are mostly overcrowded and they're infrequent. We have gotten no relief regarding this situation, even though we have reached out to the city. These buses transport a large number of seniors, working adults, and students around the community that attend our educational part. Adding animals and carriers to these buses, I think, would eventually add to our transportation problems. There were other locations submitted, but they were not explored. At the initial meeting that we had, we were told when we asked, about other locations, they said that Co-op City was the only one, and they were moving forward with that at that point. Later on, we were told that there were other locations. So we were asking why were they not explored? Sometimes the first choice is not the right choice. And I think that Co-op City shouldn't be the only choice. The other choices also should be explored. The Bronx deserves an animal shelter, I understand, but the exploration of the other locations should be considered because our youth are important and we are still in need of our community recreation center. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Questions? Ms. Bailey, if you'd be willing to answer some questions? Thank you.
Sorry. Question?
Commissioner Marin.
Ms. Bailey, good morning, and thank you for taking that long trip from Co-op City here. I heard you say that when we were informed. When you say we, is that Co-op City residents, or you are also a member of the community board?
I'm a resident, but we were informed at the meeting.
So was that after, were you part of the process, or you were just informed once the decision was made?
Correct.
The latter, then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Oh, I'm leaving.
You might want to hang around for a while.
I will, okay.
I won't be long.
That's okay.
The advocates for this project have cited the existence of the Marshallou Montefiore Community Center. It's which I guess is run by the Boys and Girls Club of America, located at 3750 Baychester Avenue. They cite that as a pre-existing recreational facility. Are you familiar with that location?
Not exactly, and it's not enough to service what we would like in terms of all of the youth in the community. You know, we need a a facility that, you know, the children will have access to. You know, maybe we could have multiple things going on in that particular location, and that's why we are in need of more space.
So in your estimation, this is not an adequate
No.
facility?
No, the one that you're speaking of, no, it's not.
Thank you.
Commissioner Delahoo's.
Thanks for being here. You mentioned first and foremost the need for the youth center, kind of picking up on what Vice Chair Knuckles. Do you have information that you can share about in terms of the background, the level of advocacy that the community has been doing around that and what the status of that is?
Well, I don't know the particular status, but I know it's been ongoing that we've been requesting to have, you know, the city help us in terms of getting a facility for our youth, because we tried to get one within our community, but the spacing was not adequate for it, and we needed more funding in terms of reaching out, in terms of getting the type of, I should say, things that we would like the students exposed to. So we were reaching out in that respect.
Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Levin.
Well, and basically on the same topic, do you know if the Co-op City community or the wider community has had other thoughts about what the city ought to do with this piece of property, this particular piece of property? Is that something you are aware of existing?
We're talking about the lot.
The lot where the animal shelter is now proposed to go. Had that been identified by the community as a place that could serve a community need?
Other than the community center, the youth center?
Well, had you been talking about this particular site for the community center, or is the community center just a general? Yes. Okay, you had focused on this site and said we would like this to be a community center?
Exactly, this isn't new.
Okay, and that goes back a number of years?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so it's more than a generalized, we would like a community center, and it could go here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That particular location was identified.
Commissioner Efron.
Thank you, and thank you for coming out. If there is another site for a youth center, or separate and apart from that, is there any concern on your part about having the animal project here? Is there any concern about the use for an animal facility?
At that location?
Mm-hmm. Separate from the youth. In other words, if there was space found for a youth center elsewhere within your community, is there any concern about the use of this for an animal shelter and receiving site?
At another location, yes.
Here, is there a concern about the use? In other words, is there some concern on your part about having an animal receiving center in your immediate neighborhood?
Yes.
What's the concern?
At that particular location, because there isn't another location to have it, particularly right there in our community. We have other locations that were, you know, brought up, possibly that, you know, could provide that wasn't very far from that particular location. But, you know, in looking at the type of transportation that we have, because we're inundated with the traffic, and you know, the particular location across from an open seating restaurant, another restaurant next to it, you know, we were looking at all of those variables, you know, and we were just thinking of another location would be better suited for it.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, Ms. Bailey, you're finally off the hook.
Okay, I'm off.
Our next speaker in opposition is Yolanda Grant.
Good morning. My name is Yolanda Grant. I'm a resident of Co-op City for over 20 years. One of the reasons that I moved to Co-op City was because it was considered a dog-free, animal-free community. To me, it was going to be my peaceful retirement home where I felt like no dogs, no animals. And it's not that I don't like animals, I do, but I don't want to live with them. The location where they propose to put this animal shelter is between Red Lobster and a retirement home, senior home. Would you eat in Red Lobster? I wouldn't, because I feel that the area is so small and it's so crowded in that little immediate area. I would not be frequenting that Red Lobster. And I also feel sorry for the seniors that live there. It won't be that quiet as it is right now. The traffic, that's another problem. Once the mall opened, the traffic was out of control. To add another development to that area, which is already overcrowded, is going to be too much, especially for the older people like myself. I also feel that the animal shelter, although it's going to be open certain hours, it won't be open 24 hours, which means if someone has an animal that they would like to bring there and the shelter is closed, they're going to leave their animal right outside. And that's another problem. There will be animals all over Co-op City. And that's something that me personally is frightening. The thought of that is frightening to me. And that's all I have to say.
I do have to take issue with one thing that you said, characterizing yourself as an older person. Questions for Ms. Grant? Yes, Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi. Do you know if some of your concerns are issues at their other shelters? You know, you mentioned that folks might come and leave their animals if the shelter's closed, and Co-op City might be overrun with animals. Are these other shelters in other neighborhoods facing some of these same issues? Do you know one way or another?
I don't know. You know, I never came across that before. I'm just thinking about my location where I live.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about any other location.
And if you were told that that's not an issue at the other shelters, would you feel more comfortable?
No.
Thank you.
Commissioner Capelli.
Would you have the same concern for the serenity for the seniors and traffic if a youth center was put into this location?
Oh, no, because the kids can walk there. They live there.
Mm-hmm.
So the only traffic would be, I guess, with them crossing the street or whatever, the traffic, you know, which is normal. But if you have people coming from the outside, that's traffic. Additional traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Grant.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker in opposition is Florence Williams, and she'll be followed by Leslie Peterson.
Good morning, all. My name is Florence Williams. I'm here. I agree that the Bronx does need a full-service animal shelter. However, I feel that the 2050 Bartow Avenue location is not an ideal location for that site. There is city-owned land located in the South Bronx, 2 larger sites. However, I guess the employees really don't want to work in that area. So I'm not sure that's true or not, but that's my feeling. Also, they're saying there's going to be about 350 additional cars in the area, and the area is already heavily congested with traffic. And sometimes crossing the streets for seniors is very difficult. Okay. The land formerly owned by, formerly used as a golf range, it's 2 minutes by car away from the 2050 Bartow Avenue site. It's accessible to public transportation. It's a much larger lot. However, it's owned by the state. So, but I think that would be an ideal location, and it seems like the city and the state could get together and work something out so that the animal shelter can be placed there. I understand there has to be some kind of benefit as far as monetary benefits, so they could build a pet shop, and therefore that would bring in equity. So those are my feelings.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Williams? Commissioner De La Uz.
Ms. Williams, thanks for being here. I just, because the site that you mentioned that was the former golf course came before us about a year ago, that's going to be a senior housing and a mall. Not anymore?
No. That was,
never mind.
No, that was squashed.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay. Never mind.
And also, if I could mention, can I mention?
Yes,
One more
please.
thing. The correctional facility that they spoke about is closed, so it's no longer a correctional facility. So why can't that be converted?
Commissioner Marin.
Can you identify what that correctional facility is?
Spotswood.
Just so that you're aware, the Spotswood facility was RFP'd, and the RFP was awarded to a group of developers that are going to be building residential housing on there.
Okay. But they did have two sites. One was on Bruckner Boulevard, and one was by Hunts Point.
Correct. I think the Bruckner site that you're talking about is the site that has been identified for the new correctional facility. That's to replace Spotswood.
Oh, okay.
Other questions for Ms. Williams? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in opposition is Leslie Peterson, and she will be followed by Marlene Smith.
Good afternoon, or evening, morning, whatever. Losing track. My name is Leslie Peterson, as you had mentioned, and what I wanted to say first and foremost is that there were a series of disrespectful actions that have taken place because according to what we've been told, the community board was not notified when the venture first started. The community of Co-op City absolutely was not notified. And most recently, the Bronx Borough President said that he was not notified, and had he been aware, he would have certainly reached out because there are many different locations that are city-owned within the Bronx, and he would have certainly helped. And in his recommendation against it being located there, he said he would welcome the opportunity to further explore other options. I have also read that any hearing by the City Planning Commission should be published at least 10 days immediately prior to the date of the hearing, and a copy of the notice mailed to the community or borough board affected by the application. And when we spoke to the community board, because most of us just found out about this meeting yesterday at about 5 o'clock, and thereabouts. And so I really applaud many of my neighbors for being able to, make it down here. I know that it is on the website, but there was no notification, according to our community board and others, that this meeting was actually taking place today. So I hope that you bear with us because many of us are getting, the rest of our information together to present to you. What I wanted to let you know is that we would like to see this property converted, the city-owned property converted to meet the needs of our community. And yes, in fact, this is a location that was promised to us many years ago, going all the way back prior to Bloomberg. And what they did was after they promised it to us, then they plopped tractor-trailer trucks there that belong to the NYPD. And one of the reasons why it may be going to take them such a long period of time is because the NYPD has now received a location out in Queens where they are going to take all of their the confiscated material that they house in some of those trucks and put it in a central location in Queens. And they're not expecting to probably move those trucks for the next couple of years. So of course, nothing would be able to be done. As far as I know, New York City and the Bronx is still a part of New York State. And again, Community Board 11 is on the other side of the highway from us. And in fact, there is, like the lady mentioned, Florence mentioned prior to my getting up here, is that property is right off the highway. It's very accessible. It's not next to an eating facility or a senior facility. And to see the seniors come out to the borough president's hearing and to the community board hearing that live in that building was awesome. And I just want to say, I know the light went up. Thanks. My time is up.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Yes, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Ms. Peterson, I have a question, but did you have anything to add before I ask the question?
I have a lot to add, but okay. That would take a lot more time.
Thank you. Well said. You said the site was promised to you. Who made the promise, and what, in your view, was the intended use of the site?
I know for a fact that Mayor Bloomberg had promised a location to us, and it was for the purpose of a youth center.
Was there any other action taken in furtherance of that promise?
Well, what happened...
And to whom was it made? I don't assume it was made to you personally.
No, it was not made to me personally, but it was made to River Bay Corporation, many of the board members, of which I was not one at the time. It was made to them, and it is, there are written materials about it that was published in the paper and in our Co-op City Times also. And all of a sudden, the next thing we knew, it was taken away and the trucks were placed there.
Yes, Commissioner Dweck.
Just a comment. You made a comment about the notice being proper, so I'm going to request from council to just notify us about, confirm what exactly happened.
Okay,
no,
good.
We will
concerned seriously, so we're going to, I'm going to look into it, Sarah.
Yeah, we will, at the post-hearing follow-up, address that proper notice was given for the meeting.
And you asked me something before, and I do just want to add this one thing, is that when we did have the hearing at the borough president's location, there were several comments, kind of derogatory comments that were made, but I won't go so much into that. But one of the things that was mentioned was the fact that there were several of us that were of a certain age, and why do we need a youth center, you know, up there? And I would venture to let you know that Co-op City is a very family-oriented location, and yes, I live there, my daughter lives there, my cousins live there, they have kids, I have grandkids, so yes, we are very concerned about our youth that live in that community, whether we're old, middle-aged, or young. We are concerned about our youth in our community. You're the committee.
We're concerned because we're all young at heart.
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
I just wanted to mention, there was some mention about the MTA site, and while it did not succeed in the ULURP application, there's still a designated developer for that site, and it's MTA owned, and the issue there is that they want as much as they can get for that property. You know, so I would imagine, given what we heard in terms of costs, you know, being a factor, that would be an issue for that location as well.
Well, you know, that's very interesting because it is still state and we are still part of the state. And one of the things that you had mentioned also, I can't remember your name, I'm sorry, but yes, and you had mentioned about Spofford and you said that an RFP went out. And so I'm very curious, it kind of piqued my curiosity as to when did the RFP go out and when was it accepted? And was it known at that time that there was a location being looked at for an animal shelter? Because, you know, that seems to me to coincide with, if this is some place that could have been used for that, why wasn't it placed there, as opposed to the affordable housing that now the RFP has been awarded to, I'm assuming.
May I? So those details, I don't remember every single date, but I'm sure we'll make that available to you guys so you can understand that. I don't know that the two processes were parallel tracks, so that may have been the disconnect, but we'll get you more details.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
The other thing I'll note with the discussion of other sites is what a jigsaw puzzle we have with the competing needs for municipal facilities for affordable housing and with land increasingly being at a premium. Other questions for Ms. Peterson? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our next speaker in opposition is Marlene Smith, who will be followed by Donna DeChiaro.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marlene Smith. I've been a resident of Co-op City since 1977. It's not that most everything that I think should be said was said by some of my neighbors, but I don't really think we need a dog shelter in Co-op City. And it's not that we don't love dogs. We all like dogs, but when I moved there, it was a no dog policy, and right now, I think there are other places in the Bronx where this shelter could go. The bottom line is, Pelham Parkway don't want it in their community. City Island don't want it in their community. Troggs Neck don't want it in their community. And they don't want it down low in the Bronx because they don't want to have to go down that side. They wanted to bring it up in Co-op City, and we don't need it either. We don't even have a train station that runs up into Co-op City. To get out of Co-op City or to come in, you have to take a train and take 2 buses to get into Co-op City. A lot of people might not be able to even afford to traffic a dog with all of those different stops. One of the things that I did not like when we had the hearing down at the bar president office, the racist remarks and stuff that was being thrown around actually was thrown in my face, because those people that come from the other side of the Bronx, because they didn't want a shelter, and they think, oh, give it to them over there because they're all seniors and they're not coming and they're not going. Give them some fried chicken or some watermelon, and I bet you they will say, bring the shelter here. I think that was disrespectful, and I think they should try to put the shelter in one of the other city-owned property, like Gun Hill Road, or find some place on City Island or Pelham Parkway. They have places, they just don't want it in their neighborhood. And I would rather see a YMCA or a YWCA where not only young people could go, but everybody of every age could go. Whether you're a senior, we live on a fixed income, we can't afford a spa. So if our health place where you go to get exercise, if they put a YMCA or a YWCA, we would be able to go there for free or pay a few dollars. I would rather see that. We love dogs, but we love our old people and we love our young people. That's my take on that.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Questions?
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We're now going to turn to speakers in support, beginning with Donna DeChiaro, and she will be followed by Bernadette Ferreira.
Good morning, Chair Lago, Commissioners, President. My name is Donna DeChiaro. I'm co-founder of Bronx Animal Shelter Endeavor, BASE. My grassroots advocacy group has been very heavily invested in working on proposal for this Bronx Animal Shelter for over 8 years. We have met with all the significant parties. We have been included in the talks. We submitted a proposal for a state-of-the-art animal shelter to Commissioner Bassett back in 2014, which was acknowledged with a letter saying our ideas would go to the mayor's office. I'm seeing a lot of our ideas in the current proposal for this site, 2050 Bartow Avenue. What we had hoped to be a sweet victory for the borough and the 30,000 intake animals rotating through the city's ACC Center shelter system turned sour during the ULURP. As both CB10 and the Bronx Borough President in their advisory capacity voted no to 2050 Bartow Bartow Avenue for the Bronx Animal Shelter. Denying the state-of-the-art Bronx Animal Shelter, this high-profile location, which fit the physical and financial criteria to succeed, keeps the Bronx underserved and prolongs endangering animals in all 5 boroughs by continuing to overcrowd the 3 existing ACC shelter with Bronx animals. The city has not shown any other interest in any other project except the animal shelter for this site. Mr. Jeffrey Dupuy, Deputy Commissioner of the Mayor's CAU unit, stated repeatedly at the June and July public hearings that there is no site available for the animal shelter. There is no other project slated for this site. There is, however, a developer interested in this site to build supportive housing, which New York City has not responded to. Host community is being misled and believes a YMCA youth center will be established if it stops the animal shelter. Conflicting information about youth affordable supportive housing must be addressed here. How do we compete with a lobbyist being paid $200,000? That info and figures, according to a recent AM NewYork.com article to push for this site for supportive housing, petitioners from a West Harlem Democratic political club distributing misleading flyers, which I have a copy of in our information packet, to collect signatures for a supportive housing development on the site. Politically funded buses and robocalls illegally saying they were from Community Board 10 to attend the ULURP meeting in Co-op City in June. The future of this $60 million state-of-the-art design animal.
I'm afraid we're going to have to cut short the testimony, but you should feel free to submit it.
Yes.
And at this point, we'll turn to questions. Yes, Commissioner Deleuze.
Well, first, I just want to say that, the comment that Ms. Smith made about the racist comments that happened, I guess, at the prior hearings, and now you're raising some other concerns. All of this is, certainly unusual and not, and I think you can see from the kind of proceedings that we hold here that those are the kinds of things. We want to have conversations based on facts and based on information that we can, clearly make determinations on. So, and those things are absolutely not acceptable, certainly to me.
You speak for the commission.
I appreciate that.
And you speak for us as well.
I saw a lot of nodding heads in the room. I think one of the things that would be helpful, given your background in the 8 years of advocacy for the site, given some of the concerns that some of the residents in opposition, I don't know if you happen to have this information, but given your experience in advocating, do you know if some of the concerns that were raised about the kinds of, potentially leaving animals, or the issues related to how animals are transported to the site, or, how they get there, like, do you have any data or information that would help address some of those questions and concerns?
I don't, but I have experience as a TNR certified rescuer through the ASPCA. I do trap, neuter, return for cats. I've been doing that for about 12 years now. And I have been to the Central Manhattan shelter many times. I have had to drive there, my own transportation. I've never seen any animals left outside, and I do not. And I think this was addressed at one of the public hearings. They looked at existing comparative conditions at the other 3 shelters, and that was found to be untrue.
Commissioner Deleuze, what we can do is to ask the applicant to address his experience at the other shelters that are already in operation. Other questions for Ms. DeCaro? Thank you.
Okay, I'm submitting an information packet with additional information on some of the questions the commission asked other responders.
Thank you. Our next speaker in support will be Bernadette Ferreira, who will be followed by Ehidio Cementili.
I'd like to submit before I get timed, because I know I'll get timed out. So I made printouts, and I apologize if I don't have printouts for everybody.
No, if you would just submit it to the secretary, and she'll get it to the commission, to the commissioners.
It's still morning. My name is Bernadette Ferrara. I'm presently and have been for the last 15 years, a TNR certified animal rescuer. I'm an animal advocate. I'm a community leader. I'm also on Community Board 11. I'm also the president of Van Ness Neighborhood Alliance. So I'm very involved not only with my community, but also been fighting for the animal shelter since 2002, and been following it and have been out there verbally in the media, et cetera. So I'll try to edit what I'm saying here because I know I'll be timed out. I'd like to direct my comments to the 4 specific points referenced in the Borough President's recommendations to the ULURP application. Point number 1, recommending the Co-op City's long-sought construction of a recreational center. There are specific locations throughout Co-op City community buildings where many rooms stand empty with no youth team programs in place or any funding for the City Councilman Andy King or Assemblyman Michael Benedetto for youth team programs at any of these locations. These specific locations are listed with Co-op City resident Jen Gonzalez's testimony. These locations are more centrally located with the 5 Co-op City buildings on River Bay management property. There are also many surrounding properties vacant in Bay Plaza and in Co-op City, well suited for our Youth Teen Center. Co-op City presently has other community centers along with 2 newly constructed basketball courts. I would also like to state that the developer, First Hartford Realty Corp., who is working hard to purchase this city-owned lot for senior and veteran affordable housing with the promise of a youth center, has failed to disclose that this building will be a 30-story high building, not similar to their current building next door that is 7 stories high. Co-op City residents made another important point that families from far-reaching buildings will not send their youth to this location. A more central location amongst the 5 Co-op City buildings will prove proactive for all the Co-op City residents. Number 2, with regards to the pets. Co-op City is home to many emotional support and service animal owners that own cats, dogs, and other animals. When Co-op City was completed in 1968, animals were allowed. These owners were grandfathered in as the no pet policy was introduced. Because of this no pet policy, all the more to have the shelter for children and residents to interact. Point 3, regarding location not well suited by time-efficient mass transit. Finding a location in the Bronx that is truly centrally located is wishful thinking. Wherever it is placed, some will walk, some will take a bus and subway, some will choose Uber, Lyft, and taxi.
You were prescient in saying that you would be timed out, but we welcome receiving the rest of your testimony. Any questions for Ms. Ferreira? Yes, Commissioner Marin. Oh.
I'm just going to ask the obvious. You state that Co-op City allowed for animals and then subsequently a no pet policy was adopted. Can you give us documentation? It doesn't have to be right now.
I don't have it right now.
Well, that's my point. So if you can forward that to us, identifying that, we would appreciate it, because I know, having been born, raised, and bred in the Bronx, I know Co-op City is a no pet development.
I will get that information because I do have friends of mine that were there when it was constructed and were the first time in there, and that is the.
We would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Deleuze.
Yes. I was just going to ask if there was one additional point from your testimony that you wanted to raise. You were getting to the point about
yes, there was
transportation.
Yeah. There are three locations in Manhattan. 110th Street is the ACC, which all the rescuers are there all the time. You have 59th Street and 2nd Avenue, the Humane Society. I was just there on Saturday. Also the ASPCA and 92nd Street. They're all on the Upper East Side. They're all not centrally located. And they're 15-minute walk from the subway station, but now with the 2nd Avenue subway, that makes things a little bit easier. But before that, going back 20, 25 years, all of those situations, they are far away, but they are right next to the Marriott Court Hotel. You have St. Anne's Church, St. Anne's School. You have high-rise buildings. None of the residents ever complained about allergies, dog poop, or noise. So they are all very well aware. Because of being in Manhattan, you have to be very careful about your neighbors. And they service all of the 5. They service all of the people in all 5 boroughs. Whether you're going there to adopt, surrender an animal, whatever the need is, they have no problem servicing everybody because of their locations. And there are 11 buses that go from New York Transit Bus. If you go on there to Bay Plaza, there are 11 buses going from all the different areas as far as City Island, Norwood, et cetera, plus the 5 and 6 subway. And in 2024, there will be the Metro North going in Co-op City. So you do have a lot of transportation going back and forth. And this property is not on River Bay. This is in Bay Plaza. This is not in River Bay Management.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
It wasn't an invitation to read the entirety of the statement,
yes,
which we will read when we get it.
The last one's not important anyway. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ferreira. Our next speaker in support is Egidio Cementelli.
Egidio Cementelli.
That is, you have identified the challenge of this job is reading the handwriting. Thank you.
But a great effort, thank you. And honorable members of the board, good afternoon, or good morning, actually, and a special hello to our former deputy borough president, Mr. Kenneth Knuckles here. I'm submitting here for the secretary. I'll give it to the secretary, a copy in support of my statement. Thank you. You have in that package Mr. King's discretionary funding from 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018 councilman's discretionary funds allocated for organizations, startup organizations. And may I say, Mr. King has not included 1 penny for a youth center in Co-op City. Not 1 penny. And the borough president have also attached 2018 funding, $58 million to organizations in the Bronx. And also the borough president of the Bronx. Not 1 penny for a youth center in Co-op City. So this notion, this idea, this concept, this pie in the sky, lacks sincerity, truthfulness, transparency. Shameful from the borough president to Councilman King, who I respect. I've been to every community board, almost every community board, professional board person, I guess. I attend. I was there at the 2 meetings in Co-op City. I was there at the borough president's, and I testified. The public had appropriate time, notice, and so on and so forth. Transportation, there's a map, including in my package. Co-op City has become a hub, transportation hub. Why? Due to the fact that the city of New York has given basically their land for development of malls. Here, we have a little dot on the map for a good cause, for what we're entitled, the Bronx. And politics has gotten in the way. Interest, lobbyists have become part of this process and deny the people of the Bronx a fair share. If Mr. King and the borough president wanted the youth center, they would have been advocating it for years.
Thank you,
the
Mr.
transparency
Simmons.
is here. Thank you.
Questions?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony.
May I just add something to off the
I'm afraid we have so many people signed up to speak that people are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Ms. Chair, there was some racist remarks here or implied to racist remarks. I think that needs to be clarified.
Sir, we're not addressing that. Your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We'll turn to our next speaker in support, Jen Gonzalez, who will be followed by Roxanne Delgado.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Chairman, and Commissioners. My name is Jeanette Gonzalez. I'm a resident of Co-op City for over 45 years. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, as well as the hundreds of Co-op City residents that could not attend because they work. However, they did sign the petition in favor of the shelter clinic located at 2050 Bartow. This clinic will provide spay, neuter, vaccines, classes, volunteer services, all at low cost or free, which we do not have in the Bronx. The concerns about the noise and cleanliness. ASPCA, Humane Society, as well as the Animal Medical Center sit on all ground levels of all high-rises that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, with schools around them, restaurants, supermarkets, and there have been no complaints regarding these facilities being located there. It's conveniently located. We have the 29 bus, 28, the 30, the 6 train. The 12 bus is a limited bus. It is a hub. It comes all the way from the west side on 207th Street, which is, I think, Inwood or Washington Heights. I am aware of the youth center that they would like to build. However, we currently have 3 community centers, Loop, Bartow, and Loop, Bartow, and Einstein, with plenty of rooms. Some of them are rented out to outside people. Some of them are empty. Some of them run a JASA program for the seniors on certain days. I think that maybe they should take some of those rooms and implement programs in there. You could build anything you want, but unless you have some programs and somebody to come in to give the programs, the rooms are going to be empty. Currently, they built a beautiful state-of-the-art basketball court on Bellamy Loop. They were supposed to offer clinics to the youth. They offered on opening day clinics. Never again have they opened up any youths, so it's just open to anybody. There's a Boys and Girls Club in Section 5. Sometimes I go there, the rooms are empty. In terms of the racist remarks, I attended that meeting. There were no racist remarks, and you can go back to the minutes and read the minutes. I'm sure it's there in black and white. Ruben Diaz is not representing the entire community. He represents, I think, the seniors. They're not pet-friendly. Co-op City is not pet-friendly. We have thousands of dogs.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez.
Okay.
Questions for Ms. Gonzalez? Yes, Commissioner Capelli.
I'd like you to just finish that comment that you have thousands of dogs.
Yes, we have thousands of service animals and emotional support animals, as well as cats. And other people have other things, iguanas and other animals. So let's not, many people have told me that this would be great for them. They're going to offer volunteer services. Some elderly people would love that, to be in walking distance. So it will be convenient.
Thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Gonzalez? Thank you for your testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker in support is Roxanne Delgado, and she will be followed by Nelson Sweeting.
Hi, how are you? Sorry, Roxanne Delgado. I'd like to first start with pointing out some inconsistencies in the Borough President's rejection of the animal facility at Bay Plaza. He fails to mention all the mass transit options available. He mentions a subway provided at Pelham Bay, the number 6 train, but fails to mention the Baychester 5 train station. Both stations are approximately 1 mile away from the site. It mentioned the BX5 was Farm, BX12, BX12 Select, Pelham Parkway, and Fordham Road. But again, it fails to mention BX23, which is Pelham Bay, BX26 is Bedford Park, BX28 Fordham Center, BX39 City Island, BX30 and 38 Norwood. Bay Plaza is the transit hub because that's where it exists. It's a mall. It has to be a transit hub. Second, I'll make this sure. In regards to the traffic concern, the Borough President recommendation on April 26th of last year in support of the Baychester Square quoted, "I am not persuaded, however, that this will add more traffic as those shopping at Bay Plaza and Bartow Avenue will be those who patronize Baychester Square," which is correct. I agree with his earlier statement. In addition, the planned Metro North Station Co-op City will alleviate the existing traffic. Some 1.4 million people live within a 10-mile radius around Bay Plaza, and this location is convenient to residents inside the Bronx and in suburban areas in Westchester County. This is why this location is ideal, because it will place more animals in homes instead of euthanizing them for lack of space. People who shop at Bay Plaza can also adopt a pet instead of buying one or adopting one outside the city, I meant. There is always opposition. People don't like changes, especially seniors. However, this opposition has been facilitated and amplified for the sake of a developer. AM New York recently reported this developer paid over $225,000 to acquire this site for a 30-story development. It's still a mystery what kind. It's supportive, homeless, I don't know. At the community board meeting, the city council member hijacked the meeting and chanted "people over animals." Never once did the city council member disclose that the developer lobbying him for over a year for this site. Even the lobbyist at the community board meeting stated he had a solution to our problem, but there was no problem. However, they created the problem for the sake of the developer. They used this community board and the seniors, they bust in to shield them from this greedy, self-serving land grab. Not in the community board statement of needs or the board president's statement of address was there any mention of any youth community center at the site. This is all about the developer. Bronx not only deserves its own animal shelter, but there is a crisis of homeless animals and neglect in the Bronx. We are in desperate need of this facility, and we need to educate the Bronx on responsible pet ownership. And we also turned in over 4,200 signatures to the board president and over 1,000 signed postcards, which he did not mention in his report. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there questions for Ms. Delgado? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Capelli.
The 4,200 signatures, where were they gathered?
On onlinechange.org, I gave a hard printout copy. Okay. The majority of people were New York City residents, and you could see the breakdown, somewhere from Bronx, Brooklyn, and some just from New York City. I could provide you a hard copy if you like.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Oh, actually 300 were from Co-op City.
Commissioner Ortiz.
So, what's your sense of where the city council person, where he stands on this?
He actually has been the lead. He actually has led the opposition instead of being neutral and letting have this open discussion. The community board, he hijacked the meeting and started chanting, "They care about animals over your youth." Of course, it's going to inflate anybody if you're telling me that they care about your animals over your child. But it's not about. This is a people issue, and you cannot judge love. I'm not comparing your animal, my cat, to your child, but love is love, and we have to have compassion. These animals are neglected because of us. We have no site for animals in the entire Bronx. We're being very selfish. We should at least allocate one site for them. It's only fair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now turn to those in opposition. Our next speaker will be Nelson Sweeting, followed by Michelle Marbury, followed by Jacqueline Chambers.
Good morning. My name is Nelson Sweeting. I lived in the community, for over 30 years. And from the time I moved into Co-op City, we've been trying to get a youth center. All of a sudden, dog takes precedence over people. I find that disrespectful. First of all, because when the mayor's office came up to us, they came up with a plan, and the plan was drawn up already. The first time the Co-op City community found out about it, they had a plan. So in other words, it was like a done deal. There was a lot of, there's a lot of opposition to this plan. And they claimed they had 14 sites. Co-op City happened to be the #1 they claimed. Well, Co-op City community reject this, and most of our representatives also reject the plan, as some of them stated. Also, I would like to say that, my throat is, we need to be, Co-op City, we're not, we're 10475. I would like for you to ask all the opposition what zip code they're in, if it's possible. Okay? Another thing, we need to, I didn't write anything down, but what I wanted to say was that there's a restaurant, 2 restaurants built right across the street on Bartow Avenue. We have we have the Popeye right there. It would be a traffic jam. They never considered the traffic pattern on Co-op City Boulevard. They're just telling us how great it is. But they need to take into consideration the traffic pattern. If you come around there in the mornings, it's a traffic jam. In the afternoon, it's a traffic jam continuously. And I think adding this dog shelter would create even more of a problem as far as Co-op City is concerned. We're talking about quality of life. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Sweeting? Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi. At the moment, this is a C43 zoning district, which is a regional commercial district. So the kinds of uses that could go into this space as of right, they wouldn't have to come to you at all. I'm curious, those strike me as really generating more, as much if not more traffic as an animal shelter. Are you prepared for that alternative, that something else could go there that could potentially generate more traffic? Because if you succeed in stopping this, you're going to get a use that might be higher intensity.
Well, I think we would rather take our chances, and we'll fight it at that stage too.
But it'll be as of right. You do know that these kinds of activities don't necessarily need to come.
And another thing, we weren't given this notice. We found out about this meeting hours before we arrived here. Okay, hours. And I think that's disrespectful.
Mm-hmm. I have another question.
Yes.
There was some mention, Co-op City is this large community, and my recollection is that the way in which the buildings are built, there's open space. It's a nice community. And someone else mentioned that there's spaces within Co-op City that are underutilized, either built space or land. Have you guys looked at the ability to create a youth center within the boundaries of Co-op City so that youth don't necessarily have to cross Bartow Avenue, which is a very busy street? As you mentioned, lots of traffic. We don't necessarily want youth crossing the street. Have you guys talked about places where you might be able to site a facility that would be really accessible to, your Co-op City youth within the confines of Co-op City?
I don't know of any space that will be readily, accessible for a youth center. Everything is basically occupied that I know of.
Okay, has anybody looked into that?
Yes.
Okay. It would be great if we had some information about, any research that had been done to investigate what's available within Co-op City and walkable, and if you guys fell short of finding a location.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Sweeting? Thank you, sir. Michelle Marbury.
Good afternoon to the Commission, absent Chairwoman, Madam Secretary. My name is Michelle Marbury, and I am a resident and shareholder of Co-op City. And I have been for 47 years. I was a child when we first moved to Co-op City. The only reason we weren't there in '68 when it first went up is because my father had an operation and my mother put us at the bottom of the list so my father could recuperate. I say that because it was mentioned that Co-op City in the early years accepted pets. This is not true. Okay, I also can submit at a later date if you want our original lease. I still have it from when my mom and dad purchased our unit. Okay, the ACC, I had heard at an earlier meeting at Grand Concourse, is in existence for 20 years. In December, Co-op City will celebrate 50 years of being in existence with a no pet clause, with the exception of service animals, okay? We are not tenants, we are shareholders. And I say that because we understand what that means. We are the largest voting bloc in the city of New York. Co-op City is. Our votes count, and our voices and opinions for our community must be respected. The changing image of ACC, the ACC has nothing to do with the needs of Co-op City and its residents. Again, as I earlier stated, my generation, we were kids when we moved to Co-op City, and now we are becoming the seniors and part of the largest naturally occurring senior community in the city. And our children and grandchildren deserve what we proposed and requested of our elected officials over 20 years ago. Not a state-of-the-art facility for animals, but a state-of-the-art facility for our youth and elders to progress forward and coexist with what is ours to help govern. What I did not hear from any one of our neighboring counties of Community Board 10 when I attended the Community Board 10, both Community Board 10 meetings and the hearing at Grand Concourse, what I did not hear is anyone from any other county, Riverdale, Frog's Neck, Pelham Bay, Yonkers, what I did not hear was anybody saying, well, I'm an animal activist, bring them to our community. We'll house them.
Thank you, Ms. Marbury. Questions? Commissioner Ortiz.
I'll pose the same question to you I posed to your colleague. You've obviously been advocating for a youth center for some time. Has anybody done a sort of a facilities search to identify, spaces within Co-op City that, again, wouldn't require youth crossing Bartow, which is a busy street?
Yes, ma'am, we have.
Okay, and you guys have, could you speak to that? Who has done that? Has there been any formal process?
Well, we have
documentation.
I didn't mean to talk over you.
Yeah.
We have a very apt and capable board of directors, which we as shareholders vote in every year. As a matter of fact, Ms. Leslie Peterson is one of our board directors, and I know that they have looked at other plots on Co-op City, and probably most likely the first reason why it has not been done is funds. We have numerous and countless capital expenditures which have to come before such a project can be started. And then when you talk about rooms that are available in our community centers and a state-of-the-art, I think people have a misconception of what we're talking about when we talk about a facility for our youth and our seniors. What we're talking about is a state-of-the-art facility that's not just to go and play cards, but we're talking about a swimming pool and where you can have tennis games, and we're talking about a massive facility that will house, that will speak to the youth and the seniors. Like I said in my statement, we are the biggest naturally occurring senior development in the world. So while the kids need facilities, the seniors do too, and we want to mesh the two together, because I think that where our youth are lacking today in their direction is this disconnect between the generations, and that's what we want to capitalize on. Co-op City is a very special place. We're 330 acres oasis, and we want to keep the sanctity of that. And it means a lot to us. I'm an original cooperator, as I said, and I'm very passionate about where we live and our community as it stands now, and helping our residents to know their power. And so I hope I've answered your question. I know I'm digressing a little bit.
Just, you mentioned 330 acres. It's quite a lot of land. You mentioned,
but it's our land.
It's
our land to help to govern the way we want it, not to be imposed upon the way the mayor is and other people.
So would you prefer a youth facility that's accessible, within the confines of Co-op City, or would you prefer a location across Bartow for your youth?
I think the youth center would be excellent in the plot that is being considered for the animal shelter because it is more important to our community to place our money and our attention and our time and our love and our commitment to them. Yes, we need an animal shelter also. I'm not standing here telling you that I'm against animals. My mother gave away a German Shepherd puppy before we moved into Co-op City. So let's just take that off the.
You know, is there a possibility of getting a youth center on Co-op City land?
There's always a possibility, but there's a vacant lot that we asked for over 20 years ago, and we were neglected. And that kind of thing needs to stop. That's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Marbury.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in opposition is Jacqueline Chambers, and she will be followed by Mary Pearson.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Chambers. I am a 20-plus year resident of Co-op City. I am a compassionate human being. I love animals, but I also have a disabled daughter, multiply handicapped in a wheelchair. She's allergic to animals. She's afraid of animals. I'm a taxpayer. We should be comfortable in our community. When we come out, she shouldn't be afraid to come out because of animals, or she breaks out because the animals are in her environment. And I'm very eager to prevent this shelter from coming. Again, my daughter, who is disabled, matters. And I just feel like, you know, this is not something that's needed in our community.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Chambers? Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker in opposition is Mary Pearson, who will be followed by Lee Rivers.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mary Pearson. I'm one of the directors of Co-op City. I want to first say Bartow Avenue dissects Co-op City. It's not the other side of the tracks. Bartow Avenue, 2/3 of Co-op City is north of it and 1/3 is south of it, the Einstein section. Yes, we have community centers. All of the rooms are allocated for meetings, organizational meetings, religious meetings, community meetings. When we were told that this was going to happen in our community, it was on May 24th. Perhaps I was not a director at that point. I became a director in June. Perhaps some people were alerted to it. You can ask Director Peterson if that is true. But on May 24th, we were presented with this done deal plan. This is our building. We're putting it in your neighborhood. They did not come to the board, as far as I know, any time sooner than weeks before May 24th. That was at a community board ad hoc meeting. It was quite raucous. We had many, many, many people opposing it, and the outsiders were there saying, yes, we want this animal shelter here. We were not asked. It was extremely disrespectful. We are of a 60% African-American community, 30% Latino, and 8% other. And the white is the other in that grouping. We are treated as others in our community. How dare they not come to us and say, how would you like this animal shelter in your community? They did not. Then there was a Community Board 10 meeting on June 18th. Andy King was there, Matt Cruz. Andy King is our city councilman. Andy Cruz is our Community Board 10 district manager. At one point, after all the testimony, Andy King very beautifully and forcefully, and our other directors made comments. Andy King had a hand count, how many people are for the shelter, and about 20 people's hands went up out of 325 people were at that meeting, and who was against it, and the other 305 people raised their hands for it. We were not asked. It has not always been an animal-free zone. For the first few years, no one mentioned it, but after about 3 or 4 years, and we can provide that documentation because it is somewhere at home, you know. Michelle Marbury said she was here for 47 years, and at that point, it was already a dog-free, animal-free community. There was a blind eye turn to cats at the time. We had cats. We were told by, I've been in Co-op City for 24 years. We were told, oh, cats are okay because they don't share the common grounds. We have always, of course, allowed service animals, but now it's very popular to have ESAs, emotional support animals, and they have been popping up all over the place. There are many,
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Questions for Ms. Pearson? Yes, Commissioner Ortiz.
I guess as a member of the board, correct?
Yeah.
You would probably be in the best position to answer this question. So could you speak about the existing community facility space within Co-op City, and if there have been formal, like board-sanctioned searches for potential space that might accommodate youth activities?
Okay, we had, before I moved in, there was a theater. It was then a bingo hall. They were looking into converting that to a youth center. We are a $2.5 billion corporation, and we have a $500 million loan out. We are under the, we're overseen by HCR. They would not allow us to convert that bingo hall. They said, no, you have to have it be a money-making space. So we were not allowed to put it in the bingo hall, which was actually not even suitable with the huge ceilings that the theater originally had. But we were looking into that. Recently at a board meeting, we were starting to think about maybe trying to transform some of the rooms in our existing community centers into some kind of shared but permanent space for youth, maybe like more computer labs, et cetera. But money is always a factor. You know, we are shareholders, but circumstances change. We're middle income. We have a median income of $59,000, and yet 1,000 of our residents end up paying their rent late every month because of shortage of funds. So, you know, like the tremendous disparity of income. What can I say? Right? So we have, you know, there are some, we have double Dutch in one of the rooms in one of the nights. And, you know, the kids, of course, use our centers, but there is no one space for them to go to, except in Einstein, that's the one below Bartow. They would not have to actually cross the avenue to get to a community center if it were built in that spot where the animal shelter is. So there is a center, a youth center that's been mounted by Montefiore Hospital, and someone said it's empty. Yes, it's empty during school hours. They're not open during school hours, but at night it's used. Any other questions?
Other questions for Ms. Pearson? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in opposition is Lee Rivers.
Good afternoon. I just found out about this meeting yesterday. Like Ms. Peterson mentioned, we was told at the 9th hour about the meeting. I've been kind of like laying low on this whole issue, but I thought it was necessary to voice my opinion. The question I asked the planning board is, did you know that Co-op City was a no pet community? And if you did, why would you bring an animal shelter to a no pet community? It's not beneficial. I asked, would you bring a mosque to a Jewish community? It doesn't benefit them. So why would you bring a pet shelter to a no zone community, to a no animal community, to a no community, pet community? And the reason I just say that is I get it. I understand. We need this. Okay, it needs to come. It needs to come, and it is mandated that it has to be in each borough. But like I said, it doesn't benefit Co-op City community. I'm a president of Building 8. And right now, we're dealing with the problem of animals in the community that's illegal, that's not legit. So it's like you're adding fuel to the fire. You're not helping us. You're making it hard for us. I myself had to clean up dog poop in my building several times. I've seen it around. Dogs are going inside the elevators, down in the hall, down in the stairwells, because nobody wants to clean up. So this is what I'm just saying. I understand it has to come. I get that. Okay. I also understand that, you know, they're talking about a youth center. Yeah, it's nice. I understand about the traffic. Yes, it would be a problem. But my whole issue here is that this is just not the place for an animal shelter. It doesn't benefit the community. Yeah, you know, you tell people this and that. Yes, we have a problem already with cats. Cats been in the community for a very long period of time. Okay, now we see the problem. We're getting the residuals from those cats. Okay, it's just a matter of time. We already see the problems with the dogs. So, like I said, I'm not trying to come back at dogs or anything else. I'm just saying that this is a no pet community, and as a planning board, as a planner, that should have been the first thing that came on your plate. It's like, why are we putting this here?
Thank you, Mr. Rivers.
Questions?
Yes, Commissioner Capelli.
You're the president of Building 8?
Building 8, yes.
How many dogs are there in Building 8?
There's a lot. Some people got 2 dogs, and then in Building 6, there's pit bulls. It's not fair to the dogs because some of these dogs are so big, they're not meant to be in apartments. We don't get it. We're not educated enough to really pick that up and say, okay, we understand that. It's really bad. It's gotten bad.
What percentage of the building has dogs and cats?
I would say in my building, I would say I've seen, it's hard to say. I would say about a good 30, about 30%, you know. But then again, like I said, you always see them. They're always popping up all over the place. It's hard to really keep track of it. Okay, you're welcome.
Other questions for Mr. Rivers? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Okay.
We will now turn to speakers in support, starting with Elizabeth Garcia, and she'll be followed by Michelle Villagomez.
Due to her work schedule, she's unable to attend.
Thank you. So we will then continue with Michelle Villagomez, and she'll be followed by Erin Early. Smart move.
I was going to use those. No. So good afternoon. My name is Michelle Villagomez. I'm a senior director with the ASPCA, and I want to thank you for allowing us to speak in support of the Bartow Avenue Animal Shelter. So just a little bit of background, and I know that our organization has come up in a few of the comments. The ASPCA is a nonprofit. We run an animal shelter on 92nd Street between 1st and York. And to speak to some of the questions that have popped up, we don't see a huge number of animals being just left at our location during the hours that we're not working, that we're not open to the public. You don't see animals being dumped en masse outside the animal shelter. Another part of the work that the ASPCA does is we are a partner to ACNC, the animal care centers, which would be the group running this animal shelter in the Bronx. And what we do with them is we work closely to make sure that animals are going into homes, that euthanasia goes down, and that we're helping people, because there's been an evolution in what animal sheltering is. So, I don't want the public to think of an animal shelter as just a place that warehouses animals. They're a vital community resource now. We do a lot of what I would put under the sort of like the social work umbrella. We partner with the NYPD. NYPD officers now enforce animal cruelty laws in the city. So all of the beat officers, all of the precincts have neighborhood community officers who are doing this. And having an animal shelter in a borough as large as the Bronx would also benefit NYPD, because when NYPD seizes animals, they will bring them to a local facility. The ASPCA has been advocating for full-service animal shelters in all 5 boroughs for close to 20 years now. And I will say this is the first time that all the dominoes have lined up. For years we've been talking about it, and there wasn't a site, and there wasn't funding, and there wasn't political will. Right now, under this administration, as it was mentioned, the City Council passed a law nearly unanimously supporting full-service shelters. But more importantly, they've put money where their mouths are. In the last 2 budgets, there has been money allocated for bringing those shelters to fruition. And for the Bronx, we saw some money set aside to do site and scope work to see what would be needed. We've chimed in as well. And it's important because the animals that go into the Bronx receiving center now will get sent to Manhattan. Same thing with Queens. So you're overburdening the existing full-service animal shelters. But bringing an animal resource like this into the Bronx is critical, because we've done our work and we've seen that the Bronx is a pet services desert area. So perhaps we understand the concerns of Co-op City and their no pet policy, but we just want to remind that this would be a borough-wide resource. So
Thank you.
We see thousands of animals in the Bronx through our services.
And you should feel free to submit your written testimony as well for the commissioners.
Great.
Questions for Ms. Villagomez? Commissioner Levin.
I guess I wanted to pick up on your last point. You acknowledge that there is a no pet policy at Co-op City, and we've heard a lot of testimony from Co-op City residents being very concerned about the presence of the shelter and the animals associated with shelter, having those in their neighborhood. Can you, what can you say to allay the fears of neighborhood? How active are animals on the outside of the facility? What's it feel like to, how much activity is a passerby going to see that involves animals?
It's limited activity, and just so that you know, at the adoption center, you're asked about your pet-friendly policy. We don't actively adopt out to places that have no pet policies in their lease. We want to make sure that animals go to homes and stay in homes. You don't want to see, an animal adopted out and then a landlord, going for a tenant and having the animals surrendered back. So that's key for us. And as was mentioned, there are cats in Co-op City. So the shelter will provide a resource for low-cost vet care, pet pantry services, and we do that via grants as well to help ACC provide those services. And in terms of what's seen outside of a shelter, a lot of it happens indoors. There is dog walking, but volunteers and staff are trained to do that in a safe fashion. The ASPCA shelter is located across the street from Stanley Isaac houses. We're by a Marriott. We're next to an elementary school. We haven't had any problems. And as was mentioned, it's not a huge number of animals that are going to be housed at this facility. And there's always a contact with the community, because shelters really want to be that community resource. They offer volunteer programs. There's opportunities for visiting senior centers and schools. So we really want to be an active participant as the shelter community with the neighborhoods that we're in.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker in support will be Erin Early, who will be followed by Ellen Friedman.
Hello. I think we're at good afternoon now. It's almost 12, right? Or after?
Well, after.
Okay. My name is Erin Early. I am the director of the Community Engagement Program at the ASPCA. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak in support of ACC. So I want to tell you a little bit about what my program does to demonstrate how we know that this is something that's really needed for the Bronx. The Community Engagement Program helps to keep pets in their homes. And as Michelle was describing, we are kind of similar to a social service organization. So we find clients who are, facing certain challenges, which might be financial obstacles, mental health, physical barriers, and we bring resources to their community. We do a lot of work in the Bronx specifically because we find it to be what we call a pet resource desert, meaning there aren't a plethora of veterinary clinics. There is not this all-service shelter that we're talking about that's needed. And what we find is that clients will find themselves in situations that can be somewhat troublesome. They often will have a large number of animals. Their pets are in varying degrees of neglect because they're not able to bring them anywhere, or they're not able to do something very simple as surrender. So if someone is evicted or moving, a lot of times we find that they leave their pets behind because they don't have anywhere to go. So what we do is we try to help clients, and we will provide them with services to help them. We work very closely with ACC, so we provide them with a grant, a surrender prevention grant that you heard Alex talking about earlier. And those, that grant is to do the same thing. So it's to help people who need any kind of services, whether that's vet care, spay neuter, or anything else that they need to keep their pets in their homes. We also do a lot of outreach and events, so we talk to people in the community. We were just at the at National Night Out last night in several locations in the Bronx. We work with the Parks Department, so we've participated in Winterfest. We do proactive outreach. We table all over the Bronx, and we partner with a lot of social service agencies. We work very, very closely with APS and ACS. And what we find when we're doing outreach is people are coming to us, animal lovers, including children, asking how they can be involved, what things can they do. And I think this is something that's really important to point out that ACC can provide, because they have something very similar to a humane education program. We don't have that at the ASPCA, so they have things like reading. Children can come into the shelter and read to pets. They have something where they can make toys, so they will come in and make toys for the dogs. That's something that's called enrichment. They also can volunteer, so it gives children in the community an opportunity to participate with animals. It's really hard to do that at the A. We have a large number of volunteers and we're not centrally located. So when people come to us and talk to us about the things that they could do, we can give them this opportunity. Thank you. There you go.
Perfect timing.
I was trying to beat the buzzer.
And you did. I'll note that I also participated in National Night Out last evening.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably a close call which got the better community reaction, your pets or the bomb squad, whose relocation we just approved as a commission, brought one of their remote robots that had every kid and adult fascinated.
Yeah.
Questions for Ms. Early? Yes, Commissioner Delahoo's.
Thanks for being here. This is more just a curiosity of mine, based on the kind of services that you all said that you provide. So, and I don't know if this is really a question of the ASPCA or of ACC, but perhaps you know the answer. So a situation where someone may be moving or evicted and they might need to temporarily surrender their animal but hope to have it back later. Is that a service that's provided?
Excellent question. So it's something that we both do. If, let's say we have a client who is a survivor of domestic violence, they can reach out to us and we can provide temporary boarding. If a client is going into a hospital or incarcerated, ACC can provide temporary boarding as well. Yep.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Early.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in support is Ellen Friedman, who will be followed by Ann Thomas.
No.
Ellen Friedman is out? Yes. Okay, thanks very much. Then we will turn to speakers in opposition. Ann Thomas.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Thomas. When I came here from Birmingham, Alabama years ago, I came directly to the Bronx. My sister lived in Throsneck for years before she passed away. I'm now retired, and I chose the building 2050 Bartow Avenue, Project Hope. I chose it because it's senior citizen. There's a couple of little small puppies there, but I like it because it's across the street from Co-op City. I have nieces and nephews live there. They don't have dogs. I used to live on 42nd Street and 11th Avenue, and they had dogs in there almost the size of horses. I didn't like it then. You have to probably do hopscotch outside to keep from stepping me because nobody wanted to clean up. I think it's all about location. I thought now that I'm retired, I wouldn't have to be worried about that too much. The building, the location that you've chosen is right next door to our building. And on the other side of the building, the location that you've chosen is a Red Lobster, a restaurant, and then us. The location that you've chosen is not very large. I don't see where you have space for animals to roam and be free. I feel that being that you're a shelter, is it just dogs or is it about, I've seen people who had, who were hoarders and had all kind of pets, including snakes. I would not like to sleep. I couldn't sleep. The thought of a snake in the building next door to me. I think I oppose it, and I don't like the idea. I think there's plenty of spaces someplace else in the Bronx. The Bronx is a big borough, and to choose this, because this is all about location. We have the mall there. We can walk everywhere. If we can't drive, we get older, we can't drive. And it's like, I just don't think that it's a good spot to have the shelter. There's plenty of spaces that you can choose in the Bronx, and I oppose it.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Questions? Mm-hmm. Well, that is the last speaker who has signed up to speak on this matter. If there's anyone else present who would want to be heard, now would be the time to come forward. Yes, Commissioner Levin.
I don't want to come forward, but actually I do want, I just want to make an observation that this hearing has really highlighted one of the challenges that we face as a planning is balancing the needs and wants and desires and hopes of an individual neighborhood. You know, they're all across the city, and many of them have tenacious community, as this one does, have tenacious community members who have worked for many long years to improve the conditions of their neighborhood. And on the other hand, we are charged with balancing the needs of the entire city. So that's not an easy thing for us to do, and I think we've heard powerful arguments on both sides. We are, this is a co-op city is a coherent, it's a big, real thing unto itself, but it's also part of the bigger city that has citywide needs. And our challenge as a commission is balancing those, and it's not going to be easy in this case, but thank you all for your testimony.
Thank you for summarizing the challenge in front of us. I also want to give a particular shout out. To me, it was quite noticeable that the ratio of female to male speakers was 6-to-1, and I love seeing the power of females in communities. So with that, the public hearing is closed.
Borough of the Bronx, calendar number 33, Community District 8, ULIP number C1803210ZSX, a public hearing in the matter of an application for the grant of a special permit concerning the Hebrew Home for the Aged.
We will, actually, let's just wait a moment as we switch over. That is a great idea. Are you going to play the organ for us? The wave?
There's a PowerPoint presentation for the next session. Do you have that to be able to show?
No, I don't take care of that.
Who would I tell?
Thank you very much. Ryan, the guy over there. Ryan, can you? You have a question. He's asking about a PowerPoint. He's asking about PowerPoint. He wants to know if it's going to be available for them. Sure. Okay.
Okay, I will, for those who weren't present earlier, I'll repeat our ground rules, which is that we will have a 10-minute presentation by the applicant team. We will then rotate 5 speakers in opposition, 5 speakers in support, going back and forth. And we ask that, with the exception of the applicant team, which is comprised of quite a number of speakers but are limited to 10 minutes, that all individual speakers will be limited in their comments to 3 minutes. And with that, I'll call forward the applicant team of Daniel Reingold, Gary Tarnoff, Richard Rosen, and then note that a number of members of the applicant team are available for questions, including Nancy Doon of the Hebrew Home, Jeffrey Roche of the same organization, and Courtney Wilk, also of Hebrew Home.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Reingold. I'm the president and CEO of the Hebrew Home at Riverdale. The Hebrew Home is celebrating our 100th anniversary this year. We began as a small synagogue in Harlem whose mission was to provide shelter for poor, homeless, older adults. In 1948, we moved to Riverdale, purchasing 19 acres on the Hudson River. And today we operate an 845-bed nursing home, a Medicaid assisted living program. We provide care at home to 12,000 people who are on Medicaid in the city of New York. We operate a 59-unit, very low-income senior housing project on Johnson Avenue in Riverdale. And we're currently building 2 affordable housing with services under the mayor's ZQA program. In all, we serve 18,000 New Yorkers every day in the city of New York, 99% of whom live below the poverty line. We also opened up the nation's first emergency shelter for victims of elder abuse, a program that is has served over 150,000 days of shelter for victims of elder abuse in the community. We are excited today to share with you our plans for River's Edge, which will be New York City's first continuing care retirement community. It will provide independent living options for local seniors who want peace of mind, knowing that they can live in a retirement community which provides a variety of amenities with the added security of a high-quality long-term care facility known as the Hebrew Home. River's Edge will ultimately consist of 388 independent living apartments located on the north and south campuses, which you'll see in a moment. They'll range from 750 square feet, 1-bedroom apartments, to 1,200-foot, 2-bedroom apartments. Although CCRCs, as they are known, have become more common throughout the United States, and even 12 of them in New York State, River's Edge would be New York City's first continuing care retirement community. It is now possible to build a CCRC because of changes that this City Planning Commission made to the zoning resolution through the ZQA amendments that it adopted in 2016. CCRCs are one-of-a-kind retirement living options since residents are pre-funding their long-term care through a life care contract. It is an insurance product. It is not an apartment building. People do not own their apartments. They pay an entrance fee. It is a one-time refundable entrance fee, refundable, I want to emphasize, based upon the size of the apartment. And then there is a monthly non-refundable fee that supports the CCRC's operations and maintenance. If a person needs skilled nursing or assisted living, that is included by the existing monthly fee that's paid, and part of the requirement of a CCRC, which we meet, is that we have both the skilled nursing and the assisted living available as people's needs change. In New York State, life care contracts are regulated by the New York State Department of Health and the New York State Department of Financial Services. And both agencies understand that seniors who choose to reside in the CCRC are pre-funding their long-term care needs. CCRC residents will never need to be on Medicaid. This is advantageous to the state and the city because the state and city support 50% of the cost of Medicaid. Earlier this year in April, the New York State Council of CCRCs, which is sit on by the State Department of Health and the Department of Financial Services, comprise the Council on CCRCs. They unanimously approved this project and are very supportive of it. As will be discussed by Gary Tarnoff, our land use attorney, over the last several years, we have engaged in a continuing dialogue about this project with the Office of the Borough President, with Ruben Diaz Jr., Council Member Andy Cohen, Community Board 8, and multiple community stakeholders. We have recently come to an agreement with our community neighbors, a memorandum of understanding regarding various aspects of the project, including reductions in height, green roofs, and various other changes that were made at the request of our local community groups and the community board, and they will be incorporated into our application. I'd like to take a moment and to thank the Commission for making the CCRC model possible in the City of New York, and particularly the staff of the New York City Planning Commission, which has been really stalwart in their support and assistance and patience over the 6 years that we have been engaged in the process. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Gary Tarnoff from Kramer 11, F. Tallis, and Frankel. We're the attorneys for the Hebrew Home. The project area consists of two portions, the 18.4-acre North Campus, where the home has been since 1948, and where we have existing skilled nursing facilities, independent living and other facilities, and assisted living, which is located in R4 zoning district, and the 13.6-acre adjoining South Campus, which the home purchased, the former home of the Passionist Fathers, which the home purchased in 2011, which is located in R1 zoning district, both on Palisade Avenue at the, near the boundary between New York City and Yonkers. The entire project area is located in the Special Natural Area District 2. The proposed action before you today is a special permit pursuant to zoning resolution section 74-901 to allow the development of a long-term care facility in the R1-1 district. A long-term care facility is as of right in the R4 district per the zoning for quality and affordability amendments. As discussed in our application, the special permit will allow us to have a portion of the CCRC in close proximity to the home's existing skilled nursing and assisted living facilities. In connection with its 2015 Zoning for Quality and Affordability Initiative, the City Planning Commission established a new long-term care facility definition, which includes, under certain circumstances, a continuing care retirement community, or a CCRC, where the amount of units devoted to independent living is less than the sum of the units devoted to assisted living and skilled nursing, which will be the case at the Hebrew Home. This would be the first CCRC established in the City of New York under those regulations. As discussed by Dan Reingold, it would contain independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing. It will allow residents to age in place and allow Hebrew Home to provide additional amenities and access to a broader range of long-term care facilities. It's licensed by under Article 46 of the New York State Public Health Law, and as Dan mentioned, we've recently received a certificate of authority from the New York State Departments of Health and Finance. As originally filed, our application was to construct 3 wings, one 12-story wing on the home's North Campus in the R4 section of the zoning lot, and 2 wings of 4 stories and 6 stories on the South Campus in the R1 section. However, as Dan mentioned, as a result of discussions with the Office of Borough President, Ruben Diaz Jr., the local council member, Andrew Cohn, multiple community stakeholders over a period of years, we are currently in the process of revising our application to the Commission in order to reduce the height of the wing on the North Campus to less than the elevation of the existing Resnick Pavilion on the campus, and the 4- and 6-story buildings on the South Campus to 3- and 5 stories. The revisions will be consistent with a memorandum of understanding which was signed by the home last Friday and signed by participant community groups. Many of the other details of the Memorandum of Understanding are set out in the Borough President's report supporting the project. The Hebrew Home has committed to increase the number of trees on campus, provide public pedestrian access to the Hudson River Greenway when it is built, provide green roofs and mechanical screening on the top of the buildings, establish a community advisory committee to address design, construction, and post-construction issues. Moreover, if the home develops on the South Campus at all, the open space shown on the site plan will be forever permanent. Our application explains how the project is compatible with the predominantly residential and institutional character of the surrounding area, and how the building access, orientation, and landscaping will buffer the nearby residences, and how surrounding streets are adequate to handle the traffic to be generated by the project. We also note that our application includes a number of non-ULURB actions which are not the subject of this hearing. These actions are authorizations pursuant to the Special Natural Area District regulations, to alter natural features, to modify height and setback in the R4 district, and a certification of a restoration plan. That's
Thank
the
you.
full 10 minutes?
No, that's the full 10 minutes have been used.
Okay.
So at this point, we will open it up to questions from the commission. Commissioner Deleuze.
I'm pleased that on Friday the MOU was signed. Sounds like that took a while to come to fruition. I guess I'm just wondering if you can share, are there any concerns that were highlighted either in the community board recommendation or the borough president's recommendation that are not covered in the MOU?
That's a good question. I think we have addressed the concerns that were raised. The community board's resolution was a negative vote, but there wasn't a resolution specifically. It was a positive resolution that was voted down, so it turned out to be a negative.
Right.
And we addressed the things that were raised by the borough president. We do have our architect and a PowerPoint presentation. If anybody would ask a question and would like to see what the site plan looks like.
The revised site plan?
Well, it's the same. Yes, the revised site plan is part of the presentation.
Nice try to get an additional other questions. Thank you. We'll thank the applicant team. We will now turn to speakers in opposition, beginning with Sherida Paulson, who will be followed by Paula Luria Kaplan.
Good afternoon, commissioners, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair. You don't often see an opposition speaker smiling, but I am today because we did sign the Memorandum of Understanding, and it does cover many of the issues that were enumerated over the 5 years of discussion. My name is Sherida Paulson, Chair of the Riverdale Nature Preservancy, and I'm a registered architect in New York and a member of the Department of City Planning's Bronx Working Group for changes to the Special Natural Area District. RNP works to protect and preserve the natural features, historic resources, and neighborhood character of the community. We have long participated in reviews and discussions related to proposed expansions of the Hebrew home, dating back as far as 1979 ULURP actions. Our community board and our organization opposed the initial presentations for this project in 2013, as the project then envisioned was proposed to consume a largely open site, too large, too tall for the surrounding single-family homes and 1 to 4 story nursing and retirement neighbors, and did not conform to the existing R11 zoning on this site, which had been downzoned in 2006. We participated in dialogue with Hebrew Home from the outset of this effort in 2013 as a way of trying to change the proposal to better fit within the community. And over the past 5 years, the development has been revised to achieve that goal as documented in the Memorandum of Understanding and Restrictive Declaration. We do oppose the application as certified on April 23rd. In our opinion, that project does not meet with the required findings for an acceptable development in terms of use and character, adequate buffers, and traffic impacts. The revised application is now a project that we can support, and since Councilor Tarnoff has enumerated most of the specifics, I will skip over that. The underlying principle of the changes offered by Hebrew Home is that community representatives will all commit to working together to resolve these outstanding issues, especially those related to traffic, noise, building appearance, and the lengthy construction period of 44 months. We also note that we will be continuing to discuss the environmental concerns expressed by members of the larger community. We would like to express our support for the changes as documented in the Memorandum of Understanding and Restrictive Declaration, and hope to see soon the revised and amended application materials to be submitted for your review. We do ask that you reject the originally certified application and support these revisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paulson. Questions? Commissioner Levin.
Actually, I had a question that I should have asked Mr. Tarnoff, but since you're a party to the Memorandum of Understanding, maybe you know the answer as well. Is the Community Board a signatory to the MOU?
No, they are not.
Who are the other signatories besides the applicant and the Conservancy?
Let's make sure I can remember everybody.
Is it a long list? Well, maybe I should.
The Riverdale Community Coalition has a steering committee and represents 13 neighborhood groups, including the Riverdale Nature Preservancy, the Sigma Place neighbors, who are the closest people living to the Hebrew home directly across the street, Skyview, the cooperative that is at the top of the hill, and there's one, and Riverdale Nature, I said Sigma Place, and the Riverdale Nature Preservancy.
Okay.
Well, we're not a conservancy, we're a preservancy. Well, I don't know what that means.
As a follow-up, I hope that when we get the revised application, we'll also receive copies of the MOU and the restrictive declaration, and that will have the complete answer to the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Paulson.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Paula Luria Kaplan, who will be followed by Jennifer Klein.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Paula Luria Kaplan. I am an urban planner with many years' experience in New York land use and zoning. My comments on the Hebrew home application concern the policy context of locating a multi-story apartment building in an R1 district. The initial application for a CCRC at the Hebrew home, technically before the Commission today, is too large and out of scale with its surroundings and merits denial. In 2003, the City Planning Commission and Council approved Community Board's 197A plan as official charter-mandated city policy. That hard-earned plan called for various actions to protect the character of the neighborhoods and the Special Natural Areas District. In 2005, as part of the plan's implementation, the Planning Department initiated rezoning in Western Riverdale from R12 to R11 to further lower its density by increasing minimum lot area and yards. The Commission's report approving this change stated, quote, "The proposed changes are in keeping with goals delineated in CB 8-2000, a river-to-reservoir preservation strategy. One of the major goals of this plan was to preserve the building context and scale of neighborhoods within Community District 8. Both the 197A plan and the 2005 downzoning included the Passionis Brothers site prior to its acquisition by the Hebrew home. If the Commission were now to approve the Hebrew home's ULIP application as initially submitted, it would effectively negate the 197A process and insult citizens who labored to envision their future and to produce a document capable of gaining city approval. Fortunately, the Hebrew home and concerned community groups were able to forge an agreement with compromise on both sides that allows for institutional expansion while respecting the character of Western Riverdale. Thus, in light of the Memorandum of Understanding and the corresponding restrictive declaration, I support the home's application for a CCRC. When revised per these contracts, provided that the Commission approval is conditional upon their terms, which reduce building heights on both sides and preserve open space on the southern portion, among other provisions. In closing, I wish to express the community group's appreciation for the City Planning Bronx office's help in addressing these issues concerning bulk and configuration to reach this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Luria Kaplan? Yes, Commissioner Capelli.
Not a question, just nice to see you.
I'll offer the same comments if you don't mind.
We're colleagues.
Hi, Paula.
Hi.
Great, love all around.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I'll offer.
In the spirit of the moment. Okay, this is going to be a hard act to follow for Jennifer Klein, who will be followed by Robert Fanuzzi.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Klein, and I'm speaking for the Riverdale Community Coalition. Some of you may be wondering why we opposed the CCRC development for nearly 6 years. You may see the application on paper. We see the reality of our neighborhood, a unique community, one of few in New York City, with large areas limited to single-family zoning, characterized by open spaces and lush foliage. The following reasons formed the basis of our community opposition. The CCRC had been seen as too large, too intrusive, and entirely out of character with the single-family residential neighborhood in which it is being proposed. The proposal contradicts what we thought our zoning protections were. It doesn't seem to make sense to construct a large development within the Special Natural Area District and within an area which was downzoned in 2005. The scale of the building would triple the permitted height in the R4 zoning and allow apartment buildings in an R1 single-family district. The visual impact from various vantage points, including Palisade Avenue, would be significant. The residents in the single-family homes opposite the R1 South campus had concerns that they would ultimately be dwarfed by a wall of apartment-styled institutional buildings. There was recognition that this project could set the precedent for other low-density areas here in Riverdale and elsewhere in New York City. While zoning for quality and affordability was passed, despite opposition by the Bronx communities and the Bronx Borough President, we accept it as law. However, this project does not seem to meet ZQA's objectives, as it is a luxury development. After renewed negotiations with the Hebrew Home, we have reached a compromise. Accordingly, we now support the project as described in the recently signed Memorandum of Understanding, which details various amendments to the CCR application before you, plus protections included in the restrictive declaration. RCC urges you to incorporate the provision of the MOU and restrictive declaration into your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Klein? Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Robert Fanuzzi, who will be followed by Scott Amrine.
He had to leave for work, but he did submit a statement.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so then we will invite Scott Amrine, who will be followed by Andrea Cianfrani.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Amrine. My apologies, a call took me outside. So a bit winded, but I'm here to express my support for the project. I am the president of the Continuing Care Leadership Coalition, and I've been working in the field of long-term care for more than 20 years, and I think this project is very important for a number of reasons. First of these is it will give the residents of Riverdale access to a highly regarded care model, the life care model, which very few people in New York currently enjoy, and it's one that will, excuse me, allow them to age in place in their own community with all of the supports that they need no matter what. I'm not going to talk in detail about the model because you heard Dan Reingold speak about it, but what I do want to emphasize, excuse me, that the model has, both lifestyle dimensions that are very favorable. It's a comprehensive, unique model allowing individuals to focus on their current level of health while building in a crucial level of financial protection to safeguard against future medical needs. It allows residents to age in place and to access, if necessary, every aspect of health services from assisted living to memory support to skilled nursing at any point in their lives. And in this specific proposal, residents will be able to take advantage of unique resources like the Hebrew Homes pool, exercise facilities, and community dining options, while knowing that if their care needs increase, nearly all of those needs can be met right on the same campus. And in addition, Life Care residents are guaranteed estate protection through an entry fee, a deposit, that is almost fully refundable to the resident or the resident's estate. Currently, there are 2,000 CCRCs in the United States, and if you live 90 miles away in Pennsylvania, you'd have 300 to choose from. As Dan said, in New York today, statewide, there are only 12, and to date, none are immediately available to those living in either Riverdale or anywhere in the city, in the 5 boroughs. This project would change that. It would give city residents an important resource that would allow those who count the city as their home to remain here as they get older. And the second really important reason that this is so important is that this project and others like it are very important to maintaining in Riverdale and throughout the city a strong, viable community of high-quality, not-for-profit senior care providers. The not-for-profit sector, the non-for-profit senior care providers in the New York area are truly the pace setters in keeping the bar high in the areas of innovation and delivering exceptional care quality. Hebrew Home and its not-for-profit partners are the 4- and the 5-star facilities that consistently provide the best staffing, the best quality outcomes, and the most sensitive person-centered care for those who need long-term care services as they get older. And River Spring specifically is much more than just a leader in quality. It's been in the forefront of the movement to build aging-prepared communities. For River Spring and other high-quality providers to have a strong future, they need to diversify and innovate. This project will be a vital part of keeping River Spring vibrant and growing so it can be a world-class asset for the Riverdale community.
Thank you, Mr. Amrine.
Thank you. My apologies for being late. I'm happy to stay and answer any questions.
Yes, any questions from the commission? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in support will be Andrea Cianfrani, who will be followed by Zelda Fassler.
Good afternoon, Commission. I am Andrea Cianfrani. I'm the Director of Public Policy at Live On New York. Live On New York is a membership organization with over 100 members, including the Hebrew Home at Riverdale, that provide community-based services for older adults, including elder abuse prevention and victim services, case management for homebound seniors, senior centers, home-delivered meals, senior housing with services, and many others. Live On New York works to connect resources, advocates for positive change, and builds and supports and fosters innovation so that we can age, all of us can age with grace, confidence, and vitality. With New York's senior population rapidly approaching and growing a diverse 1.8 million by 2040, and a growing percentage of that demographic being individuals over 85, the need for senior housing of all types will only continue to grow. Housing that will foster the ability for older adults to age in place, remain actively engaged in communities, and be connected with both services and their families and networks is critical. The CCRC application before you today, as you have heard, is proposed by an organization that's been serving the community for many decades. The proposal serves a wide range of care services for residents with varying degrees of need, which is very important, including those needs that may change over time. A great deal of thought has been put into the design and the services and overall concept, and the growth of CCs around the country demonstrates an option that can be very critical for seniors and older adults here in New York and make New York City a better place to age. We do encourage full support of this project. There are 2 other quick things I wanted to add after sitting and listening to several comments today, which at hearings prior as well. New York, at Live On New York, part of our mission is, our mission in general is to make New York a better place to age. And really underlying everything we do from a policy perspective is the true belief that older adults are driving the resilience of communities, driving New York City, have always done so and will continue to do so. And the need to allow older New Yorkers to live as they've always lived, as New Yorkers, is really driving the policy work we do. We talk a lot about older New Yorkers and the thousands of hours they're volunteering, the caregiving that they're providing not only to their spouses, partners, or families or loved ones, but also to grandchildren, to the amount that they are powering up the economy, and to the activism, as you have heard, and I'm sure you hear many times today, of older New Yorkers here speaking about what is important for their communities. So core to our mission is really the true belief that seniors are part of a community resilience strategy and allowing New York to continue to be strong. And that's why we support through our members and through policy that really uses the community-focused mindset of offering services to older adults. So we're really important for us to be here today. In closing, I just wanted to echo, Chair, you actually said it better than I did. You have a very important job here in the decisions you make, and we are really appreciative that you balance all those considerations and keep seniors in mind when making those decisions. So we thank you for letting us speak today.
You're welcome. We do it with pleasure, and we take our responsibility seriously. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker in support is Zelda Fassler, who will be followed by Cynthia Armstrong.
Good afternoon to all of you. My name is Zelda Fassler, and I am a resident of the Hebrew Home, and I am also your neighbor. And I also need my glasses. As an older adult in the community, I feel very strongly about the need for quality senior services and housing options being made available to older New Yorkers. I want to emphasize the word neighbor, because in this discussion about buildings, we should not lose sight of the people who live and work in them. As a resident of the Hebrew Home, I live, shop, and vote in the Riverdale community. And I too care about the well-being of our beautiful neighborhood. I believe our neighborhood should open doors and not build walls. River's Edge would open a door to seniors in our community and those nearby who want to stay local and reside in homes made and designed for older adults' needs. And the decision on the CCRC project will send a message, not just to our neighborhood, but across all of New York City, about how we value and respect our senior population and their changing needs. Let's not turn our back on a first-class, well-thought-out project that benefits older adults. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Fassler. Questions?
Any?
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Oh, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Just an observation. I just want to say hello to Paula Kaplan.
Our next speaker in support is going to be Cynthia Armstrong, who will be followed by Anne Marie Hennessy-Levine.
Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Armstrong, and I am Assistant Living Resident of Hebrew Homes at Riverdale. I'm here today to emphatically support the Hebrew Homes proposal for a CCRC. As a resident, I care a great deal about maintaining a strong, viable, non-for-profit senior and elderly care in this community. I consider Hebrew Homes to be a 6-star facility. 6-star in positivity, creativity, sensitivity, quality with dignity, providing long-term care services now and as seniors get older. Senior living opportunities and services offered by Hebrew Homes are few and far in between. Hebrew Homes is working to address this. I hope our community agree together that these changes are needed because more and more seniors are living longer now. This project will be a vital part in keeping Hebrew Homes a world-class asset for the Riverdale community. I urge you to approve this project. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the poetry of your 6 stars. Any questions for Ms. Armstrong?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker will be Anne Marie Hennessy Levine, who will be followed by Devorah Levin.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Anne Marie Hennessy Levine, and I was born, I went to school, I am working and currently raising my family in the Bronx. My parents came from Ireland and found their home here in the Bronx for almost 60 years. My father resided at the Hebrew home for the last 2 years of his life due to a stroke until his death this past March. I know he would have welcomed the opportunity to reside in a life plan where his needs would have been taken care of throughout his later years, but that was not meant to be for him. However, it can be a reality for me and for other older adults that want to remain in the Bronx and to be close to our families and to everything we know. There is no other life care plan available to us in New York City. I do not want to go to Westchester County. I do not want to go upstate. I do not want to go out of state. I want to remain here in my home, near my home place, near my children, where I have lived and worked my entire life. I support the Hebrew Home's efforts to serve the evolving needs of New York's aging population. We need facilities that will allow seniors to lead independent, active, and meaningful lives. That is why many of the Hebrew Home's residents, employees, family members, and friends throughout the Riverdale area agree that a life plan would be a great benefit to Riverdale and to New York City. The life plan finishes and enhances the circle of services older adults need and deserve in New York City. As you have heard, the Hebrew Home has collected a great deal of input over several years to preserve the character of the neighborhood. This is a balanced approach that respects both seniors and the local community. It is important to note that the state-of-the-art design presented for the South Campus emphasizes accessibility and ease of getting around. At the same time, the vision of the South Campus preserves open space. The site will have a great deal of greenery and abundant views. We have a right to have such a service in New York City, to meet our needs so that we can age in place, that I can age in place. I can be close to my loved ones, avoid the stress of a faraway move, and to receive health care in an environment I know and trust. I appreciate the opportunity for you to hear my voice today and to the voices of the other seniors who have just spoken. Thank you.
Thank you for this testament to your father.
Thank you.
Questions? Thank you. Our next speaker in support is Devorah Levin.
Good afternoon. My name is Devorah Levin, and I have resided in Riverdale for the past 18 years. I have noticed the many residential developments that have gone up throughout the neighborhood, and so I appreciate the community's concern. However, after attending multiple community board meetings and seeing the architectural renderings, as well as considering all of the concessions that have been made to make the construction of this project as low impact as possible, I've concluded that this proposal is beautifully designed and compatible with both the river environment and the neighborhood surrounding it. The South Campus will remain 92% green as depicted, and its footprint is compatible with the building that preceded it. The structure will not be visible from street level, as it is built the equivalent of a football field length away from Palisades Avenue and is situated downhill perpendicular to the river. I imagine a private developer would use a much greater percentage of this campus to construct rows and rows of mansions, leaving no open space, causing more traffic and a greater burden on our local resources. Please consider that if it is not the Hebrew Home developing this property, it will be a different builder, and take into consideration the partnership that this community has been offered throughout the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you for your testimony. Those are all of the people who have signed up to speak on this matter. If there's anyone else who would want to be heard, now would be the time to come forward. The public hearing is closed. And Mr. Secretary, any more business before the commission?
Chair Lago, we are finished.
Okay, we're out of here. Thanks.
We are finished.